All right, Council, I know we have quite a bit to talk about here in work session meetings, so we'll get started a couple of minutes late. Call our work session meeting to order. All of our elected officials present. 3 items up in discussion. Ryan, help me out. 5A. How much time do you think that would take? Because I'd like to prioritize some for some open discussion in the work session on 5C.
Mayor, my recommendation is that you just exercise your prerogative as board chair to go ahead and bump mine to the end. We'll take whatever time's left.
Then let's, and as much as we got Brandon here on 5B, let's go ahead and talk about that, and then we'll move into 5C, and then time permitting the business license code updates.
So it's we're on 5B.
5B.
Is that right? Okay. This is, and I'll just level set this conversation very quickly. This is a discussion item on the park, the 10-acre park that is part of the Mountain Ridge development. I don't know why I put that picture together. It isn't very good. Just shows you it's the area south of 134th along Sentinel. The east side of Sentinel is now beginning development with Edge Homes. It's the second part of that Mountain Ridge, and it includes the 10-acre park. This is rotated to its side, so 134th is on the left side of the screen, but it's the 10-acre area along the canal with 138 forming the south border. And then it comes up to this point. This is early in the process. Obviously, there's some very decently fleshed out plans for the park. They've been working with our Parks and Trails Committee, but it is not before you for approval, nor is it going to the Planning Commission yet. So we just wanted to get general feedback from you and priorities and questions and concerns. Just to make it fun, I rotated this the other way, so 138th is now on the other side of the screen. But you can see it is bordered the canal on the east side, this Greenford Lane along the west side, and then it's kind of broken up into general areas. The southern portion, we've got a couple of play fields that are scaled out with the associated parking. This middle area, and we'll get to some more detail, is laid out for the recreation, the play area. There's a splash pad, some playground equipment, and then pickleball courts. And this north area, because of the geometry, is not quite sized sufficiently for formal programmed play space. So the discussion that we've had with this area would be a little more informal and passive with some walking trails and things there. But Edge Homes, who is developing the overall area and is also going to serve as the design and contractor on the park itself, has put together some renderings of the space. I'll just go through those very quickly, and then we'll go back and we can both respond to questions and provide any additional details. You can see the pickleball courts laid out, and then playground equipment and a splash pad that you can see there. This northern area here, there's a break point between them. This is the clubhouse and pool that would be private to the Mountain Ridge development. So separate from the public park, and we felt it best for a lot of reasons to have a very clear dividing line between the two. So again, and the trail will extend along the canal. That's kind of that hatched line that you see here. So the trail will run within the park area along, and then it will connect to the loop. And let me go back to, it will connect to a loop that goes around the development. They'll be able to cross Sentinel, and then it loops all the way around. So there'll be some walking paths internal to the development as well. So really tonight, we both wanted to introduce you to the park as it's currently laid out, but also give you the opportunity for input, feedback, questions, concerns, and we can move forward with more formal design to incorporate those things in. So we have a representative from Edge Homes, Brandon, that's here, and then again, it's also been reviewed over several meetings by Cheryl and the Parks Committee.
Thank you. That was going to be my first question. So this has been a lot of input from our Parks Committee to come to this point. And second question, the clubhouse component there, that's not part of the 10 acres, correct? Okay. So the 10-acre requirement for public space is being fulfilled here.
Correct,
It's not-
yeah. So if you include the clubhouse and pool area, it'd be a total of 12 acres, but
Gotcha.
the public portion will be 10 acres.
Okay, well, Brandon, thanks for being here tonight. We've got some council members that have questions or comments, so I'll start with Councilmember Perucci, then Broker.
Yeah, thanks. And for the colleagues on the council's awareness, Jason reached out to me and Councilmember McKay, since this is in my district, and Jason to hers. I believe it's in mine because of the boundaries.
It is. The canal is the break point between the two, but it is literally the border.
It's on the border.
So the west side,
I did
east side
too.
of the
I thought
canal
it wasn't
is
in mine, so I
district.
could include you, but
Yeah,
yeah,
I'll throw a map up.
yeah, we'll check it out. But it was a helpful discussion for us because we were able to share some inputs from our previous discussion about the fish pond or detention pond, depending on what direction we go there, just so that they're aware of that. I think this is going to be a nice amenity, so we appreciate the chance to talk with you about that. So not a question, just a
Thank you.
commentary. But
Councilmember Broker.
Thank you. My only question, it looks wonderful, thank you very much. Parking. Is that parking adequate for that size of park?
Did you want to respond to that? Sure.
Are they going to be parked all the way down the street because of the big soccer tournament that's going to go on?
So we've had multiple discussions about that with the Parks and Trails Committee, and we believe this is adequate parking for what we have there. There will be street parking allowed. However, I don't know if this was mentioned. I apologize for being late. No homes will be facing the street, so they won't be parking in people's front yards if there is on-street parking.
Okay.
So that's the canal there. So these are our ponds. That's park is actually on the west side, and that's so it does literally form the boundary between the two, but it certainly impacts to both districts.
Gotcha. Councilmember Broker, anything further? No? Councilmember McDougal.
Yeah, so the amenities that are proposed, are those still open, or is this what we're planning on doing? I guess, Cheryl, is that for you?
Pardon me, I was under the desk there,
It's fine.
getting my stool. What was that question again?
The amenities that we're seeing here, are those the planned amenities?
Yes.
So are those soccer fields? I
One
guess I'm
soccer
trying to get a little
field.
bit more detail what I'm looking at. Are those soccer fields, or?
The south end is a soccer field,
Okay,
and then you have a parking lot, then you have a playground and a splash pad. And
Okay.
then on the north end, you have detention, and pickleball.
okay, so those are pickleball courts
lit.
there.
They are lit, but the committee asked for some delineation or a break between the clubhouse and the city's amenities. That, therefore, it would be very clear as to who the park belonged to, that it wasn't part of the HOAs, but it was a city park.
Okay.
Right there, they're showing too.
So the only question I have and a concern in council, I'd love, is just a question that came up a couple years ago, and that is a splash pad in a desert environment. I think some residents are going to question, that idea. So I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that, because, that's my only concern.
Parks and Trails Committee, that was one of their suggestions, that we have a splash pad on this side of the city, on the west side, on the southwest side. So they recommended that we have a splash pad there. Up to this point, the city has not used recirculating water for their splash pads because of the health department's regulations and the manpower that would be required to test that and take care of all of those things.
Right.
But certainly something they can look at.
Well, I'm just concerned about building an amenity that we may have to close down because of water accessibility. That's my only concern. So, but
And just a quick, in response to that, the design that you see, they've kind of incorporated feedback from the city, from the committee, but that's part of the reason that we're here tonight is to get feedback from the council on what you feel to be appropriate amenities. That's why we're here, is for that feedback.
and that's fine. If I'm the only one who has a concern with it, I won't go over and participate in the splash pad that much anyway. So.
I'd love to see that photo. Anything further, Councilmember McDougall?
No, thank you, Mayor.
All right. Councilmember Perucci and then Broker.
Thanks. Just to comment on the splash pad, I think that honestly, as a dad with young kids, that's the families that are kind of being targeted. So I think that the design of this park, the value of it is you've got kind of all ages that can benefit from the park, from the north end, kind of all abilities. People can experience it as a trail, open space, etc. Possibly there was conversations about making some BMX hills there. With the pickleball courts, obviously a lot of age groups can participate in that. The playground, the soccer fields, splash pads. I mean, the one over by Harriman City Hall, it's like you're fighting 17 different kindergarten classes to get access. And so I think the demand will be really high there. So I recognize the water constraints, but I also think based upon like amenity demands in our community, there'll be a lot of interest in something like that, especially for young families.
Thank you. Councilmember Broker was there. Did you still have a comment? No? Okay. Then we'll go to McKay and Heyman.
Thank you. I was just going to say, I think it looks beautiful. I think it's going to be a great amenity for our city and for the neighborhood. And so I'm excited. Let's have a groundbreaking. Thank you.
Well, to that, maybe pose the question, what are we looking at in terms of timing? I mean, and with respect to the accumulation of impact fees to pay for this project, how are we looking there?
Yeah, I can answer that. So we've submitted plans for Greenford Lane, which is the long road that separates this from the residential development. So we've submitted plans for that, and we plan to build that with, so there's the phase in blue and the phase in green. Hopefully none of you are colorblind, but if so, it's, right where the cursor is there, and then Greenford Lane. We plan to build that immediately as soon as those plans are approved. And so that'll bring on all of that park frontage, which we would love to get started this year on this park as quickly as we can get plans approved. So, and then remind me your other question.
That was it, really.
Oh,
so
okay.
the park phase, 26B and 26A, those will go basically concurrently. You're going to be in development on those.
Correct, yeah. Impact fees was the other question.
Yeah.
So we've...
That's probably more for staff.
yeah, that's more for staff. But yes, we've been paying into those park impact fees thus far and continue to do so as we pull permits.
And because some of the space within the park area is being utilized for stormwater management, we have those impact fees that apply as well. So
Okay.
we're pretty comfortable that we'll be, and we knew going into this about where our budget ceiling was going to be because we knew exactly the number of units that were being built. So we should be in very good shape.
And the retention pond is grass, so you could use it for some
Very
type
much
of...
so. Yep.
Will this be programmable space
Yes.
in the soccer fields?
Yeah, and
all that?
we just met again the other day talking about,
Great.
with the engineer and the design group to talk about ways to make sure that it is both programmable and usable, after storm events, so it's not a soggy mess. So there's some good innovation that's being discussed to make sure that it's always usable space.
I'm sure as soon as Cheryl communicates that to the soccer leagues, it'll be instantly filled, right? Spencer, Councilmember Heyman, do you have a comment, question?
You actually just answered that about the retention pond there. Is it usable space? Is it, yeah, so you just answered it. So I think the park looks great. Good job. And appreciate what you guys are doing there.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. We're
Councilmember
excited to
Broker.
get started, so.
Just a quick reminder, is this a cooperative park, meaning it's between Riverton and Harriman, or is this is a Riverton
This-
park?
Yep.
Thank you.
Harriman has space just to the south. So they have park space that will continue on the south side of 138th. We have that elevated crossing to have some connection between the two, but this one is just Riverton City.
So the parks will be contiguous.
Yes. Along, and with the trail running along. Yep.
So they don't mow their lawn and we mow ours.
And theirs is actually pretty much in, right?
Yeah, so we've been building, they have a parking lot, a pavilion, and a bathroom, and then they're notching out some space for a playground right now, and they'll phase in their amenities. Fortunately, on the Riverton side, we do have a very well put together development agreement that you guys have approved many years ago that does allocate those funds to stay here in this park so we can build that all at once, which would be great.
Are there restrooms on this side too? I didn't see that.
Say that again?
Are there restrooms?
Yeah, I think we have 2 spots for restrooms right now.
There and
Okay. Council, any other comments, questions? I think you're getting a lot of kudos.
Yeah.
It looks good. Appreciate you working with all of our city staff and also our Parks Committee to
We
come to this
appreciate you
point.
guys. You guys have been great to work with, so.
And we'll expect it, starting tomorrow. Sounds like. Greenford Lane, go. Thank you. Well, let's move to 5C. This is the discussion that we have on both the work session and it's slated in discussion during the regular council meeting on the fire staffing, 3-man versus 4-man, services on engines. I know, Kevin, you've got a little bit of preface here to level set the conversation. We've got some representatives from UFA. I wanted to get to this as soon as we could in our work session format because I think a lot of questions have come up amongst myself and council members, and I think in a work session format it's going to be a lot easier than during the council meeting. I just want to say at the outset that this conversation is really based just on a budgetary look. We've been looking at, with our hat on as the Riverton Fire Service area, we look at projections over the next 5 years, and we're seeing, we're seeing some pressures on where we think fund balance is going, and in conversations I know with other municipalities and how they're staffed, we wanted to have the conversation now, and so we appreciate the information that I know UFA has already presented, the conversations that they've had with city manager and city team, and myself included, to pick up the phone and ask questions. So with that, Kevin, why don't you go ahead and give us a little bit of context here, and then we can get into some comments, questions by members of the council.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. You've actually done a pretty good job of saying some of the stuff I was going to say. Just to add a few things to it, I think we've had some very good dialogue and a lot of different things have come up. I appreciate everything that UFA Chief Burchett, Chief Dern, and Chief Watkins have done to help us understand all of the different options and try to make sure we're making the right decision and be the most informed possible.
And I didn't finish my thought there. I just, but it's more based on budget. I was meaning to say, and not a reflection at all on service. As you know, hopefully you know, and it was expressed in my State of the City address. We really have enjoyed our relationship with UFA. We want that to continue, and we've appreciated the level of service that you all provide and the professionalism with which you do it, and even some of the efforts you've made to go ahead and try to localize the representation and what you do here with the Riverton patches and everything. So you've been fantastic partners to work with, and I really, really appreciate that. So again, this is just kind of a robust discussion that has come up just because of looking out for the next 5 years and wanted to have the conversation.
Thank you, Mayor. The only thing I'd really add is the hope tonight is that, if possible, that we can get to a point where we can come to a consensus of the direction of the council, so that we can give UFA ample time if there is any changes that we are looking at doing for the next budget year, that they have plenty of time to adjust and pivot and make those changes. I think it's also important to understand that we're talking about one accounting period right now. We're talking about the fiscal year 2025-26 that's coming in. Obviously, it's something that if we like what we're doing, we can continue into future fiscal years, but we could also easily pivot back if we don't like it after the following year and work with UFA to pivot back if maybe we're not happy with what we did. So I think the hope tonight, we don't have it slated for an official vote because, quite frankly, we don't need that. The only reason we would do that is in the event we feel that we need to, meaning if it's to the point where it seems like it's split, that the council's not fully in agreement, maybe we'll come back in the following meeting and do an official resolution to get some more clear-cut direction. But it's not really something that we have to have a vote unless we get to that point where we just really are not getting anywhere. Obviously, this is a work session, but it's also a work session that is recorded and has minutes, and so as long as we can come to a consensus and agreement, I think that'll give enough to UFA for them to proceed. So at this point, really, it's just questions I'd be happy to answer, and where UFA is here, I'm sure a lot of the questions would be pointed to them, and just open dialogue for the elected officials.
Thank you. With that, Councilmember Broker, as our UFA representative as well on the board, why don't you go ahead and opine or chime in?
Opine. I'd like to opine for just a brief minute
Sure.
here. First of all, I just wanted to state that it's just a pleasure to work with UFA. They've been just very forthcoming and very willing to answer questions. I've toured many of the fire stations. My learning curve is a little long, but I've appreciated Chief Watkins' patience with me. I feel like as a board member, I could make a much stronger stance whether we should move to 3-man or 4-man. That certainly could be my call. But in this particular instance, because it is regarding services that impact all of our residents, I felt like it was very important that every council member be engaged and be involved in that decision, because it's going to impact the residents where they live. And so I think it makes for a much more cumbersome process. It might be simpler to do it a different way, but I think that's the fair and transparent way to do it. I also wanted to state that I'm very passionate about improving efficiency. I've met with Chief Burchett. I've asked him questions. I don't feel like where UFA is today is the end all. I think we can always get better, and I feel like as a board member, that's my responsibility, is to ask some of those hard questions and to push that dialogue, and I will continue to do so. I have asked Chief Burchett if he would I had a couple questions for him on the way over that I thought would be helpful for the entire discussion. And the first question I had was, help me understand the history. How did we get to 4-man from 3-man? How long have we been at 4-man? And why was that change made for the entire UFA area?
Thank you for having me. And first of all, I want to say that we talked on the drive over, and so I've done my best to gather this history. So as accurate as I think it is, there may be some memory loss there to me. But really it started in 2001 when NFPA passed a standard called 1710 that established benchmarks for the most efficient way to handle fire operations. Previous to 2006, we started our own ambulance service, so we went away from Gold Cross, and we did shift down to 3-handed at that point. So from 2001 to 2006, most of the UFA, Salt Lake County UFA apparatuses at that time were 4-handed. With bringing in those ambulances, they moved people off the heavy apparatus, and so most stations at that point had 2 people on an ambulance and 3 people on a heavy apparatus. Now, move that to about 2015 or 16 when conversations started with Draper leaving UFA. There was an opportunity to restructure. At that point, again, most of the stations had ambulances, and so there was an overstaffing of ambulances. And when Draper left, that gave us the opportunity to shift some of those ambulance personnel to the apparatus and become 4-handed. So 2017-ish was about that time. So they reduced the number of ambulances, but they increased the staffing on the heavy apparatus. So with Riverton specifically, that history is even more, a little bit hazy with 120 and then 121 opening and then 124 opening. But as you all know, Riverton was part of UFSA, and so those decisions were made at the UFSA board level to do 4-handed staffing. At one point, Wade reminded me we even had a transport engine, which is an engine where they can actually put a person in, and that was 4-handed, but that did not work as intended to. So that's kind of the history, Wade. Am I forgetting anything? But right now, the model, it's up to the member, so UFSA or our 4 direct members, to choose whether it's 3 or 4-handed. It's clearly stated in the interlocal agreement, which is our governing document, for the community, for the elected officials to pick that risk tolerance. So currently UFSA has the intention of moving all apparatus to 4-handed. We do have 2 stations left on the UFSA side that are not 4-handed, and those are our outlier stations that really run less than 100 calls a year. All of the others, with the exception of Cottonwood Heights, are 4-handed, the other direct members. So was that the answer you're looking for? Okay, sorry it wasn't more detailed, but I pulled as much as I could from my memory on the drive over in traffic.
Thank you. So that's some good context then. It was pre-2017. Pre-2017, Riverton was essentially 3-person on. I get confused with the handed thing, because
I know,
an individual has
exactly.
2 hands.
Right.
So if we're
8-handed.
saying 3-handed, I'm thinking 1.5 people, but 3-person for 3 firefighters. Anything else, Councilmember?
On that note, it is a struggle to visualize it with that 3-handed, 4-handed, and it's taken me some time to get there. But what that really means for us is that at Station 121, which is, and please correct me if I state something incorrectly, which is the Robert Webster Station, we have 4 individuals highly trained on the fire engine. We have 2 on medic ambulance. On the station on 27th, the older station, we have an ambulance with 2 individuals. And on 13th, Station 124, we have a fire engine with 4 individuals. That's right.
Yeah.
So for me, it's hard to visualize how you would reconstruct that to 3-handed, or if you could create a compromise in between where one station was 4, one station was 3. So it puts you in a tough spot, but I ask you, how would you do that? Make 1 3, 1 4?
Well, if I can have a little bit of time here, I think
Please.
some of the things that we've talked about with Kevin and Councilmember Broker is that because of the location of Station 124, which is the new station, and 121, which is the one up above Bangerter, their location is really ideal for our specialty units, and those are the hazmat company and the heavy rescue company. So if you don't fully understand how the member fee breaks down, all the different members pay their portion of those specialty units. And the staffing and apparatus costs are kind of spread out as well. But because of that model, Riverton is actually getting 12 firefighters a day for the cost of 8. So right now, because of those specialty units being in those locations, they come with an ambulance because we do have to have 6 for those 2 specialty units to function. And those are regulated by OSHA and NFPA standards. So the heavy rescue company is the technical rescue. The hazmat is anything hazardous material-wise, and those calls require a lot of personnel. So if we do go to 3-handed, those units will have to leave the city because we can't operate those specialty units with 3. And with that goes the ambulance, because that's how we get to the 6 number. So if we were to go 3-handed at both stations, you would lose the ladder company, the specialty companies, and 1 ambulance. So you would be going from 12 to 8 firefighters. So a difference of 4 firefighters a day in your city. And that's a significant number. That's a 33% reduction in the service. It's also a reduction in those specialty units. So those, we pulled the data from last year, and it's about once a week that those specialty units are actually dispatched to a working incident. And that's significant as well. Now, you're still going to have access to those specialty units, but they're going to be at a different station outside of the city where they are 4-handed. And then we would have to figure out how to get an ambulance back in here. So what that means is that there would be more out of service time. And this was a conversation that we shared with Councilmember Broker and Kevin. When you have 3 on an engine and you get a medical call, oftentimes those critical medical calls require 2 paramedics. So the paramedic goes off of the heavy apparatus to transport the patient, and then that heavy apparatus is out of service. So it can't go back into service with 2 people. So there's more out of service time when they're transporting to the hospital. Typically those critical calls go to IMC, so the transport time is significant. And so that would essentially take your ambulance and the heavy apparatus out of service for that point of time. And that's the benefit of the four-handed, four-person, is that when there's a critical call, the paramedic or the EMT can go on the ambulance and they can go back into service for fires, 3-person. So that's the push that we've made over the last number of years to become 4-person, because we're back in service more quickly, there's less downtime, and there's more people on the fire scene and medical scene to perform the necessary tasks.
So at Station 121, if you went to 3-handed, you would end up with?
We would end up with a fire engine with 3 people. 124 would be a fire engine with 3 people, and we would likely put the ambulance in the middle at 120.
27th.
Yep.
So it would be what would be the composition of the ambulances then? You'd have ambulances just at 120, or would they not be at the other 2?
They would have to go with the specialty units to get to that 6 number. So the ambulance that's currently at 121 is attached to the
Right, I guess I'm
heavy
asking,
rescue.
how many ambulances do we have today, and what
2.
would we go to?
You have 2 today.
Across all 3 stations?
Yeah.
We have 2 ambulances, and how many engines?
1 engine and
1 ladder.
1 ladder.
1 engine, 1 ladder,
2
2
ambulances.
ambulances.
Yep.
And the specialty would end up having to go away because of that 6-person requirement. And you said we're getting really 12 for the cost of 8.
Correct.
But that would assume that all of those firefighters are responding within Riverton City proper, which they're not, right? These specialties, they will be called out of our municipal boundary, so to speak, to go respond to any calls throughout the UFA service area, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. That's fair to say that because they're specialty units, they go when there's a specialty call across the UFA jurisdiction.
The advantage would be if we did have a major incident here, we've got the manpower already here. So that would be the benefit, but not necessarily that we're getting more people to respond just specifically to our area. Those specialty calls still have to go out.
Yeah. So I think the point is that those specialty units would not be within Riverton city boundaries on the Bangor calls. That happen frequently on that. There's not a lot of house fires in Riverton city limits, but there are, about 10 a year, I think is that correct, Dusty?
10.
But that's when those specialty units really engage heavily and when they're needed.
Okay.
But you're not, to
I don't
be
mean
fair,
to jump
you're not
in. Are you
losing?
I know Councilmember Perucci has got comments or questions, but I guess what I'm trying to ascertain, and I may not even be, well, with 5 members here, I'm not even voting if it got to an official vote. But what I'm curious to understand is, I understand the economics, right? And if you've had an opportunity to look at those figures, I would really love to know if you feel like that type of savings would actually be realized in our city, or with having engines being out of service longer and requiring calls maybe from other areas. Do you think that those types of figures would actually be realized here? And then aside from the economics and the budget, just impact of public safety overall. Do we have a negative impact? And that's something that in my conversation with other mayors, as I ask around the valley, because I haven't had the benefit of serving on a fire board, I know that West Jordan has 3-person crews on fire engines. Sandy City does. Draper, I think, is at 4 now, he indicated. And so there's, just in our own South Valley, there's this kind of mix. And some of them contend that it doesn't, that they seem to be okay. But, that's where, I guess, that's the decision that needs to be made here, is not just confined to economics, but also public safety impact, right?
Yeah, well, I think the point of the difference between those cities and mayors and what we have with UFA is the regional service model. And so Riverton is significantly benefiting from that by having 12 firefighters in their city a day for the cost of 8. And so the reduction is 33% per day. That's 4 firefighters, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And that's your decision to decide if that reduction is worth $830,000 a year, because that would be the savings. So I can't make that decision for you. I can inform and educate, and then you get to decide the risk tolerance for your community based on the information that I provide. But I'm not going to tell you if it's the right or wrong answer. I think that's for you to decide.
And we were operating at that
33%.
risk tolerance from roughly 2007 to 16, 17. There was maybe not that long, but just based on the history you kind of surmised, there was a pretty significant period of time where Riverton was operating with.
Yeah, and the difference there, though, that maybe I didn't clearly state is that there was an ambulance at every station with the heavy apparatus. So at that point, you would have had a 3-person crew with a 2-person ambulance at every station.
Okay. Whereas right now you've got
we spread our
2
ambulances out to shift those personnel to the heavy apparatus.
Understood.
So,
did you have anything else? Councilmember Perucci.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it, chiefs, and also those that are here in the back for coming tonight and for engaging in this discussion. I just wanted to foot stomp what you said, Mayor, that this is, this conversation is not in any way, shape, or form a reflection of a lack of satisfaction at the service that we're receiving from UFA and those that are out here in our community each and every day. The work you guys do is incredible. We're operating under some really interesting budget realities that, we're transferring right now $187,500 from the general fund for our fire service. This budget year will be budgeting for about at least $157,500 from the general fund to supplement fire service, which I'm comfortable with because I believe that the work that is done by the fire department, and also we do this with the police department, that impacts sales tax. At the end of the day, public safety impacts sales tax, and that's where the general fund's coming from, is sales tax. And so I'm comfortable with some level of a transfer, although at some point it impacts the overall city budget. But public safety is one of the main purposes of what we're doing. A couple of questions I had for you, though, Chief, on all of this. Because I like how you separated it, Mayor. There's the budget discussion, and then there's the impact of public safety that we have to take into consideration, and that's what we're trying to weigh here. With the 12 that are on duty, about how often would you estimate those specialty services are outside of city boundaries responding to specialty calls? And that's a tough estimate, and I recognize that it's not going to be exactly accurate, but just can you give us an idea?
I'm going to ask Chief Dern for that answer. I don't have it at my fingertips.
It'd be difficult for me to make an estimate department-wide, but what I will say is our heavy rescue program and our hazmat program specialties are comprised of 2 stations each, and so that's shared. So the 2 stations out of Riverton primarily support Harriman, Riverton, and Eagle Mountain for those specialty responses, and some of our automatic aid partners. We have a hazmat program and station that's in Midvale at Station 126, and then 2 more heavy rescue companies out of Station 117 in Taylorsville. So those stations primarily focus on the regional response in the northern part of our service area. So I can get that data if that would be helpful, and I can look into that, but it'd be really difficult to estimate how many times they're leaving for those types of calls.
That would be helpful just when we're talking about 12, but we're paying for 8, because I recognize that when they're not on one of those calls, they're operating as if they are on duty within Riverton. So they will respond to normal calls within Riverton City outside of their specialty service, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so it's not like they're just there for their specialty service. They're cross-trained on multiple functions.
Right.
I guess one point I was thinking, Mayor, when we're talking about the other cities that have done this, I would love to understand how many ambulances they have, because that's one of the biggest concerns for me, is going from 2 ambulances, where we also have the one at Station 123 in Harriman that oftentimes is surging in my district, just given the issues we have. And the vast majority of calls that we have in our city are EMS. That I can't help but see a reduction in service for residents if we shift away to just one ambulance. That's one of the biggest things that I'm hesitant on all of this discussion. The other piece is,
Yeah, candidly, I'm shocked that we only have 2. I thought the whole purpose of this, for time, we shut down 120, and then we brought it back and said it would just be ambulatory services there. So this is news to me, just in terms of the number of ambulances that we have.
yeah, I think that's an enlightening piece of this discussion. The other thing too is, our population's changed and the demographics of our city have changed since we used to have a 3-hand crew. Where Mountain View Village wasn't a thing, we've grown. Even since I've moved out here, the whole west side is just completely skyrocketed, and we're expecting even more so with this new apartment complex that's going to be built that will be considered high-rise based upon OSHA standards and fire standards. And so that's some of the stuff that I'm thinking about as we're having this discussion. Is there's a clear budget need to make some changes, but is the benefit of that budget change sufficient to justify the impossible impacts to public safety? And I'm not certain that it is. One other question, and this is not for you, Chief, but more for Kevin. In our budget projections we have, and Nick, I should have said you too, but in the budget projections we have $250,000 each budget cycle set aside for capital outlay. We're not necessarily going to use $250,000 every budget cycle for capital outlay. It's a choice that the Fire Service Board will have to make on how they're going to spend the capital outlay. But when we start looking at the budget and what started us to have this conversation, once we get to 2027, 2028, and we see a $237,000 fund balance deficit, that's when we start getting concerned about where we're at from a budget perspective. But if we have not been spending $250,000 every budget cycle on the stations, do we really have a deficit?
Maybe, Kevin, you can answer that. You can also weigh in.
Yeah.
Councilmember Perucci, with respect to the transfer from the general fund, I know that isn't, that's not sales tax per se, it's actually.
No, yeah, so let me answer, I'll answer your question, but I just need to clarify, because the city does not transfer anything from sales tax money, okay?
Yeah.
We have a fire impact fee fund that collects fire impact from development as it occurs in the city. And whenever you do any sort of fire impact fee, you either have future plans for development that you need because of the impact that new development has on the city, or you have, if you're essentially your system is overdeveloped, then your fire impact fee in that case is considered a buy-in, which basically means you're paying yourself back for overdeveloping. We already have 3 stations. We're actually, from a station standpoint, we have plenty of stations to cover fire for build out of the city. So we don't anticipate building any more stations. We don't handle the apparatus, UFA does that. And so every year when we collect fire impact fees, which is in Fund 420, that gets transferred to RFSA, which is 280, but is required by law to touch the general fund first.
Okay.
So it simply goes to the general fund and immediately goes to the fire fund. So that's all that is. It's not sales tax.
And we transfer the entirety of it?
We transfer the entirety. Every year we zero it out.
The entirety amount. Is that an estimate, or?
It's an estimate, and then we'll transfer whatever actually happens.
Okay.
In that fund, we never have a fund balance. We transfer to the penny. Now, in answer to your question about the 250, you're right. That is a set aside to anticipate best practice. Obviously, we have 3 buildings. One of them is, I want to say, about 40 years old. Cheryl, is that 120 is about 40 years old? We have one building that's now coming up on year 20, and then another building that's, about 10 years old. Obviously, best practice is you need a plan for needed improvements. We spent last year, I want to say, around 150, 160. The current year, we're spending 210 is what's budgeted. We did get a request from the fire guys sent over to Cheryl. We've got a list of some things that we're working through for the next budget year. I would anticipate, I don't know how much yet, but we're probably going to be looking at close to 200 that we're going to be recommending in improvements that need to happen on the fire stations next year. And I know there's a list of some. I'm looking over here because Darren Park sent the list over to Cheryl. Some of them I think will probably need a push to future years. Again, just trying to transition and looking through these. But in answer to your question, you're correct. There will be some years we won't spend the full 250. That would then just sit in fund balance until it's ready. We're not moving it into a separate capital plan. It's just sitting there in fund balance until it would be needed to be spent. I would argue best practice, though, is that you do need to build up some sort of fund balance for those types of things, for some of those catastrophic needs.
I appreciate it. I know we do this based upon each budget, but I'd love, as part of our long-range plans, to have a capital outlay project list, even if, so that, because we have this money sitting there, and I think it artificially gives us urgency to make changes when we see these shifts, and unless we know what these dollars are there for, at least even having a better idea, rather than doing it year to year, I think it would help us to have greater confidence in long-term decisions if we had a better idea of what we could be spending this money on year to year.
The long-range plan that we presented in January, I don't know if you recall this, but we had a note that basically said working on specific projects.
Yeah.
We actually have planned in the budget where we were going to hire somebody to come do a big analysis of all of our buildings to tell us what exactly the needs are. It's hard to know on a 40-year-old building what's hiding. We learned last year that some pretty nasty stuff was hiding behind the wall of one of the walls at Station 120. So what we did was we basically budgeted the 250 as an approximation, or put it in the long-range plan until we have that list of more detailed.
Awesome, thanks.
Okay, anything further? No. Councilmember McDougall, did you have something? No. He answered. Okay. If nobody else, then we'll go back to Councilmember Roker.
I just want to tag onto that. I would argue that as part of our UFSA board meeting, we should have that capital expenditure list, so we're always aware of it and we're planning and preparing for that. I really believe that that meeting should be much more robust than it currently is.
The RFSA?
Separate. Yes.
RFSA.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, Councilmember McKay.
Thank you. And I just want to reiterate that we have been so happy with our service, through UFA. We think you do a great job. I know when I was talking to staff about it, they said it could also be a possibility to have a split, like one of them have 4 handed and another station have 3 handed. And so I was just going to ask you how that, if we were to look at something like that, how it would be broke up as far as like the ambulance especially.
What I think that would allow us to do would be to keep the ladder and probably the heavy rescue company at Station 121, and then make 124 a 3-person engine. That's without having thought about that more than just now. That's probably how that would play out.
And I had the same curiosity, because in speaking with Mayor Wickers in Cottonwood Heights, I think their 2 stations, one is 4, one is 3. And I asked him, how do you come to that determination? He said, well, one has 400 calls for service a month, one has, 150, 200, right? And so that's why I had asked for some data earlier on just the number of calls. I know it was aggregated across all 3 stations of, varying amounts, 15, 16, 1,700 calls a year. About 1% to 2% on average are fire explosion responses, right? So we realize there's a very, very small amount of fires, thank goodness. But just the calls per station and what they're based on could help me come to that conclusion, because I think we are, as Councilmember Peruggi just stated, we're confronted with some budgetary realities in the upcoming years. I don't want to impact public safety, but if we've got one station with significantly lower calls and we can still go to 3 and 1 and maintain 2 ambulances, it may be something to attempt for the near term, and then just kind of reassess is kind of what I'm feeling like. So if I knew the numbers of calls per station, that may be a way for me to get some level of comfort to make any change if one is done, right?
How quickly could you pull that?
Oh, Councilmember McDougall and Haymond.
So yeah, I guess I just piggybacking on what the mayor said. Give me then, for the slow-minded ones on the council, if we did a split with a 4-man and a 3-man crew, what would we have at each station?
Well, I think because
And I know we're
haven't
putting you on the spot,
heard that
so.
discussion yet, but like I said, I think that that would allow us to keep the heavy rescue company where it is at 121 with an ambulance, and then 124 would go, the hazmat company would leave, which would be that ambulance as well. So we would have to determine if another ambulance would fit in the model, or if, so for example, if we exchange the hazmat company with another station that has an ambulance, that would work to get 2 ambulances, to keep 2 ambulances. I just can't guarantee that there would remain 2 ambulances without doing an assessment.
Sure. But by keeping the 4-man crew on the station out by 126, then the Oker station on 27th would possibly just be an ambulance, and then the station here
Potentially, yeah.
would potentially be an ambulance.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. I guess my comment is I really appreciate, and I know Councilmember Broker brought this up, we all sit on boards. I appreciate the fact that you took the time and energy to educate us and bring us the detail. This is probably the most I've ever felt like I've wrapped, what's going on with our fire service. And so I appreciate you being willing to do that and the time that Kevin took to sit down and go through the numbers with us. The reality is costs have gone up. And I think we have to recognize as a council that we have done a great job of minimizing the impact of cost increases to our residents through an incredibly volatile time. But at some point, we have to put the costs where the services are being met. And I think fire and police are those areas where, it's tough to cut back on those kinds of services. And so I think eventually, I think for me, I appreciate the suggestion. I think maybe a 4-3 split might be good. And like the mayor said, getting some numbers might help make that decision so we can still maintain services, but adjust costs. But that's only buying us a year or two. And I think at some point we've got to face the hard facts, and that is we're going to need to raise those costs on residents if we're going to want to maintain the services. Because our service calls, I think from the presentation you gave us last, our service calls are going up, and they're only going to go up more. And so that's just my take on it. But thank you, and I appreciate all the data and information in the meetings everyone's given us on this.
Thank you. Let me go to Councilmember Heyman real quick. We've just time checked. We've got about 5-6 minutes to our regular council meeting. This is also agended for the regular council meeting because we knew we might have to spend a little bit of time. So, Councilmember Heyman, do you have something
just
quick?
One quick point of clarification, Kevin. Does the current projections, does that include the 5% increase that we're going to receive from UFA?
The current projections that I shared with you just yesterday, I did a 5.5% for next year. Chief Burchett said that he's about 5.2 is what you were pushing for, but I did 5.5 to be conservative. And then we did revise any future years to be a 6%, again, just to be safe and conservative.
Okay. So that's what I'm looking at is we have done very well for many years trying to keep costs down, but costs are going up and future costs are most likely going up. I don't see them reversing. Calls are going up, everything's going up. Really, we're going to be forced into a position of either slowly adjusting the service fees that, the taxes, to be going up to match that, or we're going to have to wait longer, dig into our general fund, and then be in an emergency position where we've got to sharply raise things. I would be much more inclined to, rather than try to limit services and cut services and so forth, that I think the public will actually cry foul on, to be able to just say we've got to pay for the services. If you want the services, we've got to pay for it, and we need to be prepared to pay for more in the future. But we need to do it in small increments, not wait until it's an emergency that, suddenly we're front page news because we're hitting everyone with a $500 a year fee. That's just blowing it out of proportion for purpose.
Thank you. We hope that, at least some of you can carry over to our 7 o'clock meeting here. It's on agenda item number 16. We can have some more discussion at that time, council, but given I know a number of visitors we're going to have today for the Education Awards and some other special recognition presentations we have. I'm going to look for a motion to adjourn our work session meeting. And
Move
Mayor?
to adjourn.
I second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we stand adjourned for a few moments. Council would like to encourage you to take your seats here at the dais, it being 7 o'clock. Thank you. Well, thank you everybody for being here tonight. I want to welcome you all to our city council meeting. We'll call the meeting officially to order, and we have all of our elected officials present. We're going to commence the meeting with an invocation by Councilmember McDougall, and then Chief Watkins will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
That they will prosper, and we pray that we might do those things that will help them to enjoy the benefits and the blessings of living in this city. We ask these blessings upon us as leaders and upon our citizens, that we might all work together for a better and great outcome. And this we ask in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Audience, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember McDougall. Thank you, Chief. We will now, as we always do, turn over to our citizens. Give an opportunity for those that want to make public comment. Be given about 3 minutes. I will say we do have a few items for public hearing tonight. A rezone and a proposed budget amendment and municipal fee schedule amendment change. If you're here to speak to those, please just hold off until we get to that point in the agenda. But on any other topic, if you're here, you want to address the city council, please do so. Just step forward, give us your name so that our recorder can capture that for the minutes, please. Alex.
Thank you, Mayor Staggs and City Council. My name is Alexander Johnson. I and 48 other families in the Parkside community are letting you know as council and mayor about a growing public safety issue in our neighborhood. As you're aware, ongoing construction on Bangor Highway and the closure of 134th has made 126 South the primary route to Harriman and Western Riverton for thousands of residents. This has significantly increased traffic congestion, making it difficult and dangerous for Parkside residents to enter and exit our neighborhood. Traffic often backs up due to nearby signals, regularly blocking the only proper entrance and exit to our community. Residents must rely on the courtesy of other drivers while making a left-hand turn to allow them through multiple lanes of traffic, creating unsafe conditions, especially when one lane yields while another lane continues moving. Many neighbors have voiced concerns about the dangers of making a left-hand turn into the community, as visibility is often obstructed and traffic, even outside of rush hour, regularly blocks the intersection. We respectfully request that the city does the following. Paint "Do Not Block" intersection at the entrance of Parkside. This would help improve the safety of the residents attempting to make left turns and exits into one of the city's busiest roads. Through this process, I've seen how much my neighborhood values our collective safety. While I initially drafted a more detailed community letter with 49 families signed on, I've chosen to focus on the straightforward request for the time being. My neighbors and I would be incredibly grateful to our council representatives, Mayor Staggs, and city employees who could make this happen. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Alex. I know this is Councilmember McKay's district, and 126 is a border that's also shared with Councilmember McDougall, so we might be able to create a little subcommittee here and work on some things, because this has come up. And our city owns west of Bangor on 126th. For the time being, UDOT's supposed to ultimately take that over, but while we have it, and we have the ability to maybe do something additional, now would be the time. So we'll direct as council members, I'm sure, want to consult with staff and look at your request that I believe you also emailed correctly. All right, thank you. Any other member or resident citizen?
Yes, a resident. I also reside at Parkside.
Parkside.
I do appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I met with you guys, about 6 months ago about issues related to our HOA and the wall. And while you as council and staff were unable to do anything much other than offer some oversight and another look, and I do appreciate Kerry Nikes and his staff and your consideration. I'm also here on behalf of Parkside to support what Alex is stating as well. My name is Abigail Patney, and I reside at 4203 Frontier Park. I also do share the same concerns, and I do recognize that we're waiting on the developers to finish off Dutchman, as well as possibly move that over into Sand Hollow. And, you know, until then, it is a big concern. Our only two traffic routes is the public lane of Dutchman, and that itself creates an issue because a lot of the residents in that neighborhood just west complain about the traffic and the speeding because there's a lot of little children on that road. But likewise, there's a lot of traffic that flows into our community, and Quail Lake is a private road. And we as an HOA are responsible for maintaining that roadway. And so I also have concerns about the monetary wear and tear of our community. I am in support of what Alex is focusing on, which is to paint. And I think that that's a really inexpensive resolution to our issue. And I do understand that traffic studies have been conducted, so a light would not be feasible at this location. And I am in support of that. But until then, we need some relief. And I do recognize this is a UDOT project, and eventually it will end. But in the meantime, you know, I'm concerned about getting creamed. I almost got hit because somebody was making a left hand into my community as I was turning right to come here to council. And had they collided, they would have collided into my vehicle. Thankfully, I made it here safely, but that also addresses the need for additional traffic police speeding, because I think people are going on this roadway far too fast. But I am in support of adding the paint. I think, what is it, $1,000, if that. But I do appreciate your time, and thank you.
Thank you, Abigail. Anyone else?
Hi, good evening. I'm Elizabeth Hymas, and we're representing Just Serve.
Yeah, I'm Joseph White, and we're Just Serve specialists.
We just wanted to invite Riverton to become a Just Serve city, so it would be coordinating with the Just Serve program. And with this is a free platform, and it links individuals from every walk of life with local service projects. Through this program, we strive to partner with and recognize cities for their efforts. Together, we can recognize individuals for their selfless efforts they are making to bring hope and goodness to others. JustServe.org strives to make it easier for residents to find and engage in volunteer opportunities, and will regularly acknowledge and celebrate the contributions of volunteers. I have some handouts, and I'd be happy to share these with you. You are welcome to look through that, and if you have any questions, you can contact us.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Yeah, if you don't mind handing that to Jamie, to our city recorder, we'll pass those down. And appreciate you reaching out, and you know, as evidenced by the response that you saw from some of our council members, I think you have strong support there. So we'll look at what that might entail to become a Just Serve city.
All right, wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Cliff Birmingham. I'm a resident of the city since 2001 and also a professional firefighter. I wanted to speak to you tonight, just carrying over from the work session on agenda item 16A. I want to share both personal and professional concerns with the items that have been discussed and will be discussed tonight. I currently work in a city that was mentioned that runs 3 firefighters on an engine, and I'm the supervisor on that vehicle. There are some big downsides versus having 4 firefighters on that vehicle. As we all know, or I think it's well known, medical calls are the majority of what firefighters and paramedics do. When we do have a critical call and the fire engine arrives first, which often happens, when it's 3 firefighters on a crew, the captain is not able to do what they normally do. So the supervisor establishes command, orders resources, helps interface with bystanders and the family. On a critical call, where I'm working currently with only 3, I'm required to go hands-on with the patient, and all of those things I just described to you are set aside and go out the window, which is a big concern, both for the safety of the firefighters and the control of the scene. So I wanted to just share that with you professionally, that I feel like as a citizen now, we have a lot of density and population growing in this valley. We know that. We're feeling it. We really should not be cutting services. What we should be doing is actually looking to how do we increase service in the next 5 to 10 years. Station 120 is our station on 27th West. There's only 2 firefighters there on an ambulance. I would hope to meet future call volume that we're talking about how do we staff that station up with an additional fire engine rather than talking about how do we do less or do more with less throughout the city. I think, and I can tell you, as data has been given and promised, that we're going to continue to have more calls for service. It happens year by year. And we really need to recognize that and have our eye on that. I appreciate the council members that spoke about, as a resident, none of us want to pay more in taxes, but we have to accept that costs are going up, and at a level of what are we going to tolerate as both city leadership and citizens. When it is your family member that is in need, that's not the time to be asking for or saying, I wish I would have. I think we really need to continue to be proactive and plan for the future. I do appreciate your time and effort on this topic, as well as everything you do with your positions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cliff. Good to see you again. Anyone else? All right, then we'll close the citizen comment portion of the meeting. Let me go to item 12 on the agenda, which is our elected official reports. If I can ask the elected officials, given the size of our audience here tonight, and I know some of the recognition items, if you could try to briefly summarize any elected official reports they have here tonight. Councilmember McDougall, can we start down with you?
You bet. I'll set the standard. Nothing to report, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Perucci.
Yeah, just one comment. The comments that were brought about the communities having a tough time getting in and out of their communities. I mean, that's happening in my district too, in the Western Springs neighborhood. I'd love if we could possibly have staff review other neighborhoods or areas in our city that have these issue areas so that we can kind of be proactive in coming up with some of these painting plans rather than just waiting for the neighborhoods to come to us. I think it might go a long way to try to help address some of these issues, because I feel for those that are impacted in Councilmember McKay's district, because I know that it's an issue in mine too, and I'm assuming that there are other neighborhoods that have that. So that's just a request, sorry, not a report item. But then as far as the report goes, I was appointed to the Joint Policy Advisory Committee. It's the statewide forum for coordinating on transportation policy issues. And the first meeting of the year will be next week, where we're going to talk about transit, advanced air mobility, and the state's master transportation plan. So I will report back out on that meeting to you as a council and to the public after that.
Thank you. To your first comment, I think, Kevin, you could work with Carrie. I know we have the Economic Development, the Transportation Committee, that I think looks at these things in addition to speed bumps or speed dips now and their location, among other things, right? So they can report back to you on that. Thank you. Councilmember McKay. Oh, there you go.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say how much my family enjoyed the kickoff to the art show last night at the Old Dome. And I would also, I've talked to staff today and earlier, but if we could have that committee look at, what process we use to determine if there's a do not block the intersection site, And I just want to also, you know, tell UFA how much we appreciate them. I know that we've got some firefighters with us today, and so I wanted to say that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Broker.
Thank you, Mayor. I will briefly reiterate Councilmember McKay's comments. The art show is lots of fun. I encourage everyone to take the opportunity to go. If you like skeletons, if you like birds, if you like beautiful watercolors, if you like geometric sculptures, they're all there at the Dome. So it's a great, fun show. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Heyman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have nothing to report this round.
Thank you. I will just briefly say it's our legislative session going on right now. I wish we would change this as a state. The 45-day session is just, and it's just a blitzkrieg the last week. We're dealing every single year seemingly with more and more bills. I mean, this session, I think there's almost 1,000 bills that are being contemplated, much of which get rammed through at the last moment in this final week. One of them was just presented the other day, Senate Bill 337, which would create a beehive development agency and basically empower a 5-member group to create a development project, really usurping all local land use authority. And for 12 years that I've been in elected office, I actually wrote an opinion piece that was published in the Deseret News just on Saturday that spoke to this. But every year we're seemingly hit with more and more of legislation that removes from us, from your local elected officials, the ability to really dictate and control land use. So we want to get back to that sense of local control that we're often told our legislature supports, but in reality, I've seen, unfortunately, a trend in the opposite direction. So hopefully that gets substantially modified or just killed altogether. But there's a number of pieces of legislation we're looking at. And we're also hopeful in this final week, they usually put together some transportation omnibus spending bills. And we've worked extensively with our staff and with our lobbyists to ensure that Riverton City continues to receive its share of transportation funding and trail funding. And we expect to get that here in this final week as well, at least a few more $1 million appropriated for use that we can all benefit from. Move to item 13A. We have our Excellence in Education Awards tonight, and Southland Elementary is being recognized, and Councilman McDougall, this is in your district, so take it away.
All right, so I'd like to first invite, if we have any members here from the administration of Southland Elementary, to come on up and join me. Do I have a principal, anyone here? Okay, thank you. Just in case, I don't want to overlook anyone. Tonight what we're doing is we're recognizing a counselor and 2 wonderful students who work at Southland Elementary. We often award a teacher, but a lot of times people don't recognize the work and efforts that our counselors put in. I have the wonderful opportunity to teach over at Riverton High, and there's a great impact outside of the classroom that really helps our students too. So I'd like to invite Maria Velasquez Stump to join me. She is a school counselor, and as she comes up, I'm going to read to you what they wrote about her. You can come stand right here so you look good for the picture. Since joining us this school year, Maria Velasquez Stump has worked tirelessly for the benefit of Southland students, our community, and staff members. The work she has done with our students, both in her office and in the classrooms, has been invaluable. With her guidance, students in classrooms throughout the school have learned emotional regulation techniques, how to manage stress, and how to resolve peer conflicts, to stay online, to plan for future careers and educational opportunities, and so much more. When students have those needs met, they're better students in the classroom, when they can learn to process their emotions, and regulate those things. So that's a wonderful thing. The work she does with individual students and small groups of students in her office is also having an incredible impact on our students. They're learning how to interact in appropriate ways, how to set and achieve goals, how to eliminate distractions and focus on the tasks they need to accomplish. She balances each of her daily tasks with children alongside constant communication with parents and staff in both English and Spanish, all while looking for additional opportunities to help with whatever she can. Whatever activity she's engaged in, she continually demonstrates her commitment by doing what is best for children. Like other exemplary educators, she passionately serves all students, regardless of their family background, academic or social ability, level of belief system, language, national origin, or any other factor. And so we want to recognize her as a great school counselor and a great benefit to our community. Can we give her a hand? Okay, go ahead and stay up here. We're going to take another picture of you, if you'll stay here. We're going to bring up Claire. Where are you at, Claire? Claire, come on up. All right. Claire is a very bright student. She grasps academic concepts easily and excels in all her subjects. Claire includes everyone. Claire is a responsible and dependable individual who follows rules and upholds our school values. Her integrity and maturity are evident in the way she conducts herself. When given a task or an assignment, she follows through and provides quality work, which is always accompanied by neat handwriting. Claire is a truly outstanding student whose attributes and contributions make her an ideal candidate for this award. We are confident she will continue to excel in all her future endeavors. Congratulations, Claire. All right, and our last student is Stephen Lamson. Come on up, Stephen. Stevie is a kind and considerate student who is always willing to help with anything that he is asked of him. He is aware of situations around him and finds ways to include others and build others' self-esteem. He always does his best work, whether the task is easy or difficult for him. Even though we can count on Stevie to know the correct answers in class, not one of my strengths, but good for you, he's willing to share the learning opportunities with other students. Let's give Stevie a hand.
Thank you, Councilmember McDougall, and congratulations again to our award recipients. It's always enjoyable to recognize our students here in Riverton across all of our many elementary, middle school, and high schools. Item 13B. Every once in a while, we get Riverton businesses or residents that make the news, and this is something that our communications department really identified the other week. They shared it with me, and I thought, hey, this is awesome. What an amazing accomplishment. We have a team here from Jiffy Lube that has named themselves the Depot Dogs. And these four individuals here that work at the Jiffy Lube off 13318 South Market Center Drive have won, right, out of 1,300 teams that participated. They are the fastest oil change team in the world. And so they were able to go down there and compete, what was down in Houston, and you won first place, which also means you won, I think, a pretty substantial prize, right, of $10,000 or so. $10,000 is what it was. So it's phenomenal. And we have these four individuals Kyle Peterson, who actually is a Riverton resident, correct? Who's here on the team. Isaac Akiyama, who's also part of the team. Mason Chivers and Xander Paul Freeman. And so these four did a pretty amazing job. I mean, again, out of 1,300 squads that participated to win that prize, we felt it was very noteworthy. And in fact, today we're also joined with the Vice President, Justin Soha, is that right? And Regional Manager, Ben Fetzer from Jiffy Lube. So we have the Vice President of Jiffy Lube here tonight and also the Regional Manager. We wanted to take this moment, congratulate you as a mayor, proclaimed today as the Depot Dogs Day in Jiffy Lube. So we've got not just that for you, but also some medallions, and we thought we'd load you down with some Riverton swag as well, some hats. So we'd invite you to come forward so that we can take some photos with the elected officials and put this out on our communication channels as well. All right. Well, item 14, the consent agenda. I believe there is an item on the consent agenda a member of the council would like to remove for further discussion. Councilmember Broker.
Thank you, Mayor. Could we remove item 14E from the consent agenda, please?
14E. Councilmember Haymond, is there something else?
I can second that.
Okay. You want to proffer a motion then? We'll approve, except for 14E? Yeah, Councilmember Perucci.
Yeah, I wanted to also remove 14D.
D, so 14D and E. We'll look for a motion then to approve 14A through C.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda excluding item 14D and 14E.
Look for a second.
I second that motion.
Seconded, Councilmember Perucci. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, let's move then to 14D first. Councilman Perucci, would you like to?
I didn't have any issues with it. I just felt like it should be at least discussed or explained in the meeting.
Okay.
I'd like, what exactly are you wanting me to explain?
Just give a high level what we're doing here. I know what we're doing here, but I think it's important for it to be addressed on the public record.
Oh, okay, fair enough. So 14D is we are approving an interlocal agreement with Harriman City to help us with our animal shelter services. As we know, the contract with Stone Ridge Vet Clinic, they've been gracious partners with us for the past, 7 years? But that's coming to an end here shortly. We are actively working on building our new facility out by the old farm park. We poured footings this past week. Brick is going to start going up within the next week, and so we're on track right now, on schedule, still try to have that building done by the end of June. But what we wanted to do was have some help from Harriman, our neighbors, as an interlocal agreement to help us out in the interim so that we could have some sheltering services until the new shelter is up. And so that's what this is anticipating Harriman to help us out in that transition period.
Yeah. No, we appreciate that. We expect that facility to be completed here soon, and so just on a temporary basis for our neighbor here to help us out with that. Any other comments, questions of staff? Motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve item 14D on the consent agenda.
Broker seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Now 14E, Councilmember Baroker, you wanted that removed?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This ordinance will remove 13800 South as a truck route, but when I reviewed the ordinance, I noticed that there were some other streets that probably need to be removed. That ordinance just simply needs to be updated, and I wanted to call that out before we voted on the ordinance at hand.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember. And Councilmember Baroker and I did speak beforehand. The intent all along for this one, it was to just do a quick removal of 138th so that we can get signs up on there saying that no trucks are allowed on that route. We do anticipate coming back after all of the construction is over with. We anticipate coming back to have a more robust conversation for the rest of the routes.
And you showed the map last time of all the
We did. I
various
apologize.
truck
I didn't have
routes,
that up here. It is in the packet.
Okay. And yeah, that was due to the Bangerter closure here. We wanted to have a little bit of sense of urgency on 138th given the response of residents. Councilmember McKay?
I was just going to say I appreciate you hurrying this through so that we can, reduce the traffic on that road, but also with the roundabout that's behind Walmart and then the roundabout that was just put in Bluffdale, it makes it really hard for trucks that are on 138 to find a path out. And so in addition, we have some trucks going in front of South Hills Middle School on 4000 West, and so I appreciate staff putting signs up along there, informing them that that's not a truck route. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Perucci?
Yeah, just to clarify, I again know the answer to this question, but I think it's important to have it kind of out there on the public record. So this does not preclude construction traffic from traveling these routes, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, if there's nothing further, we'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve ordinance 25-7 regarding Riverton City truck routes.
Broker seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. Let's move on to our public hearings. First up, Joseph, we've had you come here a time or two. I guess this time we're doing it the way that we need to. So I guess we'll allow Jason to go ahead and open up the conversation, and then as the applicant, we'll give you an opportunity to speak before we open the public hearing, and then if we have anybody here that would like to speak to the public hearing, we'll open it, then bring it back to the council for action. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. As you indicated, this is a rezone request for some property that we recently discussed in the context of a text amendment. As you mentioned, the property is located 11968 South Redwood Road. So this is 118th and Redwood here, so the property is just a little bit south of that. It's an existing commercial building. You can see here access onto Redwood Road. And this application came about because of some changes of use, desired changes of use within the building itself. The current zoning is commercial neighborhood, which is the pink color. It's my mouse is not cooperating. There we go. This is the building itself here. So that pink color is commercial neighborhood. It's a little bit more restrictive of a zone and doesn't have as wide a range of uses as some of our others. The general plan for the area is community commercial, which does have several zones that can satisfy that requirement. Again, the current zoning is commercial neighborhood. The pink color, the property to the south is professional office. There's a couple of buildings in use there. The property to the north is commercial neighborhood, and that's occupied by business as well. The properties to the west of this are R4, which is a single-family residential part of a subdivision there. The proposed zoning of the property, there we go, is commercial gateway, Also, an appropriate zoning for Redwood Road carries a little bit larger range of uses that are permitted, but again, one that we do see along Redwood Road. Like the use, and the applicant can speak to this a little more if you'd like, but the use that was in question was reception centers, not a permitted use in the commercial neighborhood zone. It is conditional in the commercial gateway. So when we saw this before, we were looking at the text amendment. This time we are just looking at the proposed change of zoning for the property from CN to commercial gateway. The Planning Commission, in their review of this, did forward it to you with a recommendation for approval. Staff concurs with that recommendation.
Thank you. Joseph, anything you'd like to add?
So I just think, Mayor and council members, I just appreciate the work that's gone into this. Jason's done a great job of working with me and being patient, helping me to understand the process as we go through this. And it does seem like the right next step here. So if there's any questions for me, I'd be glad to take them. We're excited to do this and help bring something different to the area. To the
Council, any questions of the applicant or staff before we open up the public hearing? No, I don't see any. So thank you.
Thanks.
We'll open up the public hearing. Is there any member of the public that would like to speak to this proposed rezone? Jamie, nothing received electronically? Great. That was easy. We'll close the public hearing and then remand it back to the council. Council, any further discussion or action here tonight? Council Member Baroker.
Mayor, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Please.
I move that we approve ordinance number 25-06, the Joseph White rezone, a rezone of approximately 0.81 acres located at 11968 South Redwood Road from commercial neighborhood to commercial gateway.
McKay seconds that.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, Jamie, could you conduct a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Perucci?
Yes.
McKay?
Yes.
Haymond?
Yes.
Baroker?
Yes.
McDougall?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Before we move on to item 15B, we have two more items here for public hearing. I wanted to just say, for those that were here for the Excellence in Education Awards, you're more than welcome to stay for these riveting discussions, but if you do need to go, we won't be offended if you need to stand up and leave. So, staff, we'll move to item 15B. We'll give another moment. Nick, for the budget amendment here, do you want to summarize? I know you've sent out something. We've discussed it. This is just for the water. Is that right?
Yep. So we talked about this need back in January. We have now since kind of gotten all of our bills through December, and we've looked at our new year, and we've kind of estimated that what our cost to purchase the additional water needs are going to be for the rest of the year. So what we're bringing to you today is simply to adjust our budget to account for those additional purchases that were not originally planned for in our budget process today. So we did provide also a pro forma to kind of show you, that this will be covered by fund balance and what that will bring fund balance to provide that context. So at this point, I'll open up to any questions that you guys have about it.
Any questions before we open the public hearing? Thank you. We'll open the public hearing then. Anybody like to speak to this proposed budget amendment? And anything online? No. All right, we'll close the public hearing, turn it back to the council.
So I really appreciate this process, and I've not said this before, but I think there's been some feelings that, this is not the norm for how we're going to operate at all. But I would love, and I trust staff, and you guys do a fantastic job, but we have to think about things beyond who's in all of our seats. And I would love to explore having some kind of an ordinance or a council policy to not allow for a situation like this to happen again without notification of the council and mayor. And I don't know if that's going to be a policy amongst I'd like something to be more binding than a policy. So I don't know what that looks like, and I'm just throwing that out there, but I'd like to see something written into code that there is some notification requirement when there is such a large discrepancy from the budget and actual costs going forward.
And I don't disagree. I guess in staff's defense, they do send us monthly budget, budget updates, and often that's, can get buried in those figures. I mean, myself included, I didn't.
Yeah, and this
really
is, I recognize an extraordinary circumstance that I highly doubt we will see a situation like this happen again. I don't blame staff, and staff has been trying to manage this to the best of their circumstances. I just think that in general, it would be helpful to have that as a call out if something as unusual as this happens down the road. 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, I just think it would be helpful to have some binding requirement for that to take place.
Mayor, if I may just chime in for a moment, and not trying to agree or disagree to that comment, but I think it is important that everybody is just clear in understanding this, that the main issue here was simply us. When we budgeted, we expected the green well to be up and running well before now. Right. We actually anticipated the green well to be up and running by the time the budget year started. I mean, granted, we could have come to you a couple of months ago, but we wanted to wait until we had a little bit better projection, so we weren't coming to you twice.
I recognize that, and again, this is just me throwing out a partially baked idea, and I'd welcome other council members' input, but this is, I don't know what a proper threshold is, and we probably need to have it on an agenda and have another discussion about it. I'd love to just see whether there is a certain threshold of a discrepancy before we're getting a budget amendment request before the council, that the council is notified about this need and explanations and triggers of when those explanations have to come to us before we consider an amendment.
I agree, and I think the culinary water is one that is going to have its most variable cost or opportunity for supply to vary considerably. And so having monthly reports, I think is what we talked about, is have our water department going forward. It is a requirement to send to all elected officials what, in terms of acre feet, what we were charged by the Conservancy District versus what we collected, right? And knowing that, I think irrespective of the Greenwell, the status of that project completion, had we had something like that in place, I know for me, it would have prompted at least an alarm to say, we need to go sign a different agreement with JVWCD, because had we done that, we wouldn't have been hit with Block 2 rates. And the whole reason why we're having to do this is because we were hit with Block 2 rates for a good, 1,400 acre feet above what we normally, what the 4,800 limit was, right? So I mean, for me, I think if we just had monthly reports that showed something like that to all elected officials, that would probably prevent this from happening again, or at least raise the alarm bells for all of us.
I think for water, and I'm not saying that there's a problem, but I'd like to avoid a problem, because we've had a lot of different budget amendments this year. It feels like more this year than, I know I'm one of the newest members, but it's more this year than last year for me. And I don't know what the proper threshold is, and again, it's probably going to have to be a discussion elsewhere that we consider it, but similar to, when agencies want to spend money outside of the budgeted amount, there are protocols in place for when there has to be approvals and notifications. I'd like to explore what's a best practice for notification of the budget officers, the budget deciders, the council, and when that notification happens beyond just when an amendment's being put forward.
Thank you.
I would propose that we just create a broader resolution that on a quarterly basis, we review the budget in the work meeting so that we're all very aware of what's happened the last quarter and what's going to happen in the future quarter. That would solve it.
That could as well.
Yeah.
Councilmember McKay.
Thank you. I think, we do get those monthly budget reports, but if we notice an anomaly coming along, maybe it could be called out in the email and just say, we're seeing larger than average water usage in our city, or, because of the well, it hasn't been completed. This is the percentage over we're going and stuff. Just the prior notice would be helpful. I think that to see the usage rates for the water would be beneficial as well, especially if it compared it to, if it was a chart that said, this is how much we used in March, and this is how much we used last March, and kind of a monthly amount so that we could see. I'm also just really curious why our city has used so much more water. Like, it makes me wonder, do we have some leaks that aren't being taken care of? Because it doesn't feel like last summer was extremely hot, or, and it was significantly more than our growth. And so I don't know, I'm still just trying to figure out why it was so much more. The last thing I would encourage is that maybe in a future newsletter, we talk about water conservation, even, if it's mostly culinary within the home and things that could be done. And I always think more information is better. And so let's share with our residents what has happened this last year. And, we're trying to figure out as a city why our usage is going up so high, but also, encourage conservation. I think knowledge is power. And when people see that, hopefully they'll take action, because it does add up. And we're also looking at water fee increases to try and help cover it now. So,
Mayor, last month's utility bills actually had a mailer in that helped educate the residents. We're working with the communications team. Basically, the plan is, I believe we had decided every other month we're going to be doing water education tips, and then the other months we're going to be trying to also push our residents, or recommend the residents enroll in paperless, and trying to do some savings there. And so we're actively working with our communications team to try to educate the residents and help them understand.
Thank you. No, appreciate it. And I know I'm at a loss too in terms of why such a spike. And Carrie and team is trying to get their arms around that, and what percentage loss. There's just a standard loss percentage that's to be expected across every city. But I think we're going to be able to uncover a lot of that with this rate study, is what I imagine, as we go through that process and identifying how much use. I think one thing that I think may be a culprit is just the rise in HOAs, what we've had coming on board. I think they're probably using a lot more water than maybe we think. That's just my gut. Nick, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to say the other hard thing, Councilmember Parucci, is that our invoicing, especially for Jordan Valley, is 60 to 90 days behind. So when we see a problem, we're already 60, 90 days behind that problem. So we're trying then to offset. So when we talk about coming to you in January, you're looking at October's bills are finally trickling in, and we're starting to see that that's a constant stream. So also understand that we are trying to educate you as soon as we become aware. And then you've also got a new finance director that has come in during the peak of all of this. So, and I know you're not blaming, I'm just also providing a little bit of explanation of this normally would have been brought way sooner, but we also have some other factors there.
Yeah, I want to be really clear. This situation is just the example that I'm latching onto of saying I'd like to see some mechanisms in place that require council notification. I don't think you did anything wrong. I think staff has done a fantastic job. I think everybody's doing the best that we can. But I would love to see just a best practice of notification process with timelines in place so that everybody knows when we will be notified, and you have a timeline in place that protects you as well, I think, as staff, to be able to say, hey, we've notified you, we've communicated this to you.
Yeah. I'll say too, I'll take some blame. I mean, one of the things that we did, if you look, the budgeted amount was $1.6 million in terms of water purchases. That was way too low, even assuming the green well would come online. And I think that was an error, frankly. It was an error on my part. I fully admit that. Look, it should have been caught through the budget process too, because even if the best case scenario was it would save us 1,000 acre feet, and if historically we are bumping up to close to 5,000 acre feet consumption as a city, then we should have budgeted. I just did 4,500, 558 acre foot on average. We should have budgeted at least 2.4, 2.5 million. We were a good $1 million short in terms of what we should have budgeted, irrespective of the green mill coming online. I think that hasn't been talked about because we didn't want, but
Yeah.
I'll say that was a problem as part of our budgeting process, and I can take responsibility.
Yeah,
that number two should have come out.
Thank you, Mayor. And I think it's important to also note, and again, I hear what everybody's saying, but I think it is important to note that we had this notification and brought it to everybody's attention during the strategic planning meeting in January.
Yeah.
And that was about the time that it really, as Nick is mentioning, that we
And it was
made
too late
aware
at
of
that
this
point
issue.
because they're on a calendar
Correct.
versus a fiscal year.
Yeah.
And so we were still going to get hit with that no matter what.
Yeah,
at that
exactly.
point.
And so, I mean, to say notification, we brought up and started discussing it 2 months ago.
Again, I'm not saying that you guys did anything wrong in the timeline of the notification at all, and this is just one example, but we've had several budget amendment requests that are not bad. I'm not saying that they're bad, but I would like to formalize the process of when you guys see a problem, how many days from when that problem is identified by senior staff or by the city manager or by the mayor, et cetera, when the council is communicated, and then how many days after that communication happens would ideally a budget amendment request come in, because I think that would give you guys some protection so that if we're not in these seats and this happens again, or any instance of a budget amendment happens again, there's some clarity as to when communication has to happen. I think that would give transparency to you, to us, to the public when we're doing these budget amendments, so that there's just that level of transparency and accountability. Only the council member saying this, but that's something that I would like to see. I think it's just a best practice.
Now, speaking of all this budget stuff, I know the new budget is in the process of coming up. Are we addressing that already in the new budget? And because it's cheaper to overpay than to get overcharged, right? So even if we push it larger, that's much cheaper than the rate they charge us.
If you're asking if we're going to sign a new agreement with the Conservancy District, yes.
I've already gotten word back from Alan with the Jordan Valley Water Board that will be on their April. They're anticipating on their April meeting. 5,000 acre feet is what we're moving it to, which, as you know, would then allow us to go up to 6,000 and pay the Block 1 rates. So that coupled with
the green well
the well
capacity
that
at
will not
1,000
be
and
named, we should
1,500
be
acre feet,
we should be just fine. Even if the will still has some struggles, we should still be just fine, because we're also pushing for conservation efforts as well.
All right. Well,
May
thank
I
you.
throw a quick comment in? I'm just going to caboose the whole thing. I think also as we look in the broad thing, we do have to recognize when we went through our explosive growth with the new commercial sections and everything, we had an intentional plan to pay down debt and to build our general fund balance. And this is why you do that. So when things like this happen, we don't have to go get a loan, we don't have to go into debt for it. We had the funds in our general fund. And so I think, we have taken steps in the past to try and adjust and be ready for things like this. I think the thing we've just got to recognize again, council, and we're going to do that in our next item, and that is we've got to charge for what the services cost. And as the mayor pointed out, the services are increasing. We're having more, and we need to adjust that. Part of it is just the growing up as a city. We're changing, and we've got to adjust to our new growth and size. So I appreciate everything the staff has done. It's not an easy thing, and again, I don't think anyone's pointing fingers. We're just saying, hey, and as we do that, that's really what that budgetary process is for us to kind of get in there. But I also think there's wisdom in always having cushion as a city, because some of this has been inflationary cost increases, some of it has been product, some of it, there's a lot of contributing factors to this that you can't really put your finger on one thing. And if we always are working to have a budget with a little bit of cushion in there, then we're able to handle these kinds of things without putting the city in a serious financial situation of debt. So I don't need to say anything more. If nobody else wants to comment, I can make a motion.
Please.
All right. I move we approve resolution number 25-11, approving the amendment to the 2024-2025 fiscal year budget.
Perucci seconds.
Okay. Any discussion to that motion? Jamie?
Councilmember Baroker,
Yes.
Haymond,
Yes.
McDougall,
Yes.
Perucci,
Yes.
McKay.
Yes.
Thank you. Final public hearing for the night. Nick, fee schedule? We had option A and B.
Yep, we do. So, we've been talking about water, we've been talking about water rates. There was some suggestion from council to make some changes to our rates now. We are doing our rate study, so we actually just went out to bid on that. We will hopefully have a contractor selected. We'll begin the process to do a way more formal and in-depth evaluation of our water rates and kind of have the discussion that needs to be had about the long-term health of that particular fund and function for the city. These were, so we have our current fee schedule up there, and then these were the two exhibits. As we talked about last time, we presented 4 different options. These were the 2 options that council kind of said that they were more interested in, so we brought them back today for a public hearing, and we can work through the wording of which one, if you guys decide you want to do one of these today, that's what we can do. So at this point in time, I'm happy to answer any different questions because I know that we've had a lot of discussion about it, so I want to make sure that I leave more time for questions today than me talking. So.
Okay, well, Councilman Perucci.
Yeah, hey, I really appreciate this. This has been a really extensive process. I had a question that I apologize for not asking last time we discussed this. I didn't really think about it until I was preparing for the meeting a couple of days ago. So right now, do people pay for tier 2 at that price for everything above 5,000 gallons? So that's the intention with our adjustment, is that they will not, everybody won't pay for all of their water at the higher levels if we go to either of them. They would increase at each usage amount, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So like from 0 to 5, you pay $3.76 for that, for each 1,000 gallons up to 5,000. And
Yeah.
from 5,000 above, it'd be $3.91.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure, because I think that's an important distinction. It's not that everybody, if you're using 20,000 gallons, you're not paying $4.21 per thousand for all of the 1,000. It's for everything over, and so it'll be
It's more like
tiered.
tax bracket, right?
Yeah, it's a tax bracket structure, basically. Okay, thank you.
Councilman Broker.
I will comment that I am in favor of Exhibit A, and my logic for that is simply that we know water rates are going to go up. So that's the first step to change the base rate. And second of all, I'm not prepared to penalize the higher users yet because we don't understand who those higher users are. And if they're HOAs or perhaps a business or something, we need to have better information. So I'll come out and say I'm in favor of Exhibit A.
And let me provide one more clarification. I did forget to interject. We would not put this rate into effect until April 1st. So that would not come out until we bill in May for April's bills. So we would also have some time to provide some notification to residents with their next billing cycle to give a little bit more time and understanding there. So I just want to clarify that.
Can I just, I know Councilmember McKay wants to weigh in, but the comment that was made that we don't exactly know who these people are, I think in one of our discussions, didn't we say that we have about 500 users that are above 15,000 gallons? What was the figure? So we do know approximately how many users are above, say, tier 3, right? You broke out some information from memory the last
Yes, we
meeting.
took last year's consumption numbers and looked at what they did. And a lot of them, it depends on the month. During the winter months, obviously, there's very few people that are going to go very high, but then in the summer months, that's where you see that go up. So, but we do have a list of our top water users. Correct.
And I think, out of 10, 11,000 unique connections, there were some 500 or so that did the 15,000 plus. And I don't know if those were tagged, though, as to your point, probably HOA or PUD, what have you. Do you know if you have that information?
That one we would need to do a little bit more research on for what exactly the PUDs would be in there.
Anything else, Tish? Oh, Councilmember McKay and then Perucci.
Thank you. I know that we need to do a fee increase for water, but part of my concern is I'm okay for it to go up for schools, churches, large landowners, residents that are using a lot. But my concern with the PUDs and HOAs is that just because all of these households are together, it's going to push them into the higher rate. And so they're going to be paying, which are usually, I would assume, are younger families just starting out and things like that. And I've been doing more research and listened to some podcasts and some university studies that are just showing that our kids, I know this summer my 4th child will become an adult and 4 of my 6, and sometimes I feel like, oh my goodness, quit grumbling. I was able to get through college, but research is showing that for the first time ever in America's history, the kids will not do as well as their parents and grandparents. And it's a combination of housing prices, the cost of college going up, and wages not keeping up, and inflation. And so I don't feel comfortable supporting it tonight if it lumps all of those households together, and just because they're in an HOA or a PUD and they're lumped with other households, then they're automatically going to the higher rate. I don't feel like that's fair to those families. So I don't know if we could take them out or table it until our next council meeting when we can look at those things. And I know that the rate study is going to help. But until then, I feel like we're hurting some of those younger families. I don't feel like it's fair.
Councilmember McDougall?
We cannot keep kicking this down the road. We just had to do a budget amendment for an extremely high dollar amount, which came out of our general budget. We got to pay our bills. And so we can't just keep, to staff's point, we discussed this in January, and we've now burned a couple months that we should have been collecting fees to pay for the fees. So now what's happening is we've got entities that are using more water than they should, and residents who are monitoring their water use just subsidized that overuse because we took it out of the general fund that could have been spent on things that would have benefited the community at large, and we assigned it to areas which is going to specific people who are overusing water. The only way you're going to get people to monitor their water is by having a tiered structure, because that's one thing I can control. If I want my bill to be lower, I water less. And every one of us has driven through our neighborhoods and our communities, and we've seen people with sprinklers going on during rainstorms, sprinklers going on, when grass is green and lush and pouring into the gutter. So they should pay for it. That's something an individual can control. So I don't see a benefit of us just kicking this down the road anymore. We need to address it. And frankly, I think it should be a usage thing, because individuals can control usage. Now, in regards to PUDs and HOAs, they're watering green areas and park things for the benefit of those residents that they then lock up, and only their residents get to enjoy those things. The average resident doesn't get to go into the HOA and play on their playground and play on their grass and play on their open green areas, so they should pay more. That's part of being in a PUD and HOA. And I've got young college kids who are in those exact situations, but that's the benefit of being in those communities. And so if they get to lock them off and the average citizen doesn't get to go in there and use those services, the average citizen should not be subsidizing those beautiful green areas through the water system. So I'll be honest with you, I'm a fan of Exhibit B. I think the more you use, including the commercial, including the businesses, including the people who have the big green spaces, you should pay more to water it. The other thing that's a factor here is, and maybe you can help me, Kevin, how many of our PUD and HOAs are paying secondary water fees?
Most of them actually do pay
Okay.
secondary water because they have different master meters that water all of their open space areas, and so their culinary meters generally service just the inside usage.
So they have an option, if it's outside, to do secondary water versus culinary, correct?
Yeah, and I believe most of them are that way, correct, Carrie, Jason? Yeah.
Okay, and I appreciate that clarification. So when we're talking water usage, we're talking how long people are taking showers, running dishwashers, and things like that.
And just a bit of clarification, this is just from my personal experience. anecdotal because I've lived in a townhome before in a previous home. Where we lived, the HOA had a set flat fee that they charged us for all of our services.
Correct.
And I am 100% confident because at the time where I lived, it was in West Jordan. I actually worked in utility billing. And so I saw what we billed the HOA, and I knew what I was paying monthly for the bill. And yeah, I was paying, my monthly bill was proportionately substantially higher than what I knew if I were to take their HOA water bill and split that among the number of residents that I knew we were there. I mean, it was a tiny sliver because the HOA had built into that number, you know, my garbage bill and my fee for using all of those other amenities. And they actually had an amount that I was paying for that, quite frankly, was to help them build in some reserves to repair and replace things like the roadway and those types of things.
So yeah, I guess just my final comment, and then I'll be done. 6 kids in my house. If my water bill goes up, I cut down their shower time. That's how I save that's something I can control. So I really believe in so many areas, we keep kicking the can down the road and we keep falling farther and farther behind. We keep eating into our reserves. We got to stop that. And I feel like we need to, I'm fine with council, you know, Exhibit A, Exhibit B, but we've got to do something.
Thank you. Councilmember Heyman hasn't yet had an opportunity to weigh in, so we'll go there and then to those that have already spoken, Perucci and McKay.
So just for a point of clarification, as I look at this, I favor Exhibit A, but in the case of the HOAs and the PUDs and things that are out there, if I'm calculating this correctly, am I right to see that if we have an HOA or something out there on a master meter, they use, say, 80,000 gallons over that 20,000 gallons, so they got 100,000 gallons total, right? For that, the upcharge for that extra 80 is only about 45 cents per 1,000 gallons, which is basically $36 a month.
That sounds about right.
For that. So, and if that's split, you know, amongst 20, 30 homes, it's not like a huge hit that we're gonna hit these guys with. They're not gonna find their water bill suddenly gone up, you know, $1,000 or something like that. It's fairly minuscule. And I do like the base rate increase because our base rate increase is going up from everything else out there. And, but I agree also with, if you're gonna be a high consumer, then that's great, as long as you're willing to pay for it. Most people that wanna consume high things are always willing to pay for it. That's why they have nice cars and I don't.
Thank you. Anything else? Councilman Perucci.
Yeah, thanks. So I totally understand where Councilmember McKay is coming from as far as the costs go, and I think the only member of the council who just recently was in a PUD in the city, I have a really different experience than most of you, and so at least where I lived, the experience that we had was secondary water for yard, except for our hose attachments, which are culinary. So we had 2 hoses, one in the front and one in the back, that we could choose to use for culinary water, and then also your household use. The HOA would regularly tell us, hey, you know, we're at a higher usage rate and we need you to adjust to the whole community. And as the community got frustrated with HOA fees going up, which were covering not just water, but also trash collection, park space, snow removal, etc. I mean, my wife and I and several other neighbors banded together and cleaned out the HOA board and made sure we had people that we actually wanted to reflected our views. And so we put the prices down and put the screws to our HOA property managers and made sure that we paid what we actually we were being charged for what we were paying, using that money for. So to Kevin's point, you know, HOAs oftentimes actually charge way more than they're paying to build a reserve in, which I understand that's a choice. I'm comfortable with people paying for what they're using, and it'll be aggregated out amongst all of the users. And so I think the actual cost to young families will be minimal when it's split out amongst 30 households, 100 households, etc. So I'm comfortable with, I'm possibly comfortable with someday going to Exhibit A, but I feel like changes to the base rate are arbitrary right now without a study backing it up. And so I'm not comfortable going to the residents and saying, hey guys, we're gonna need you to start paying this because we need to pay more, without really knowing how much more you're gonna have to pay and you're probably gonna have to pay more next year, but we'll have a study that will say you have to pay it next year. Right now, it's kind of arbitrary. What's not arbitrary is the fact that 2 tiers is just not sustainable. I think that's where we can make a change, and so that's why I really am more comfortable with Exhibit B right now. And then once we have this study done, we'll be able to better communicate to residents why we're gonna have to make the changes we're going to make when we make them. I also think that, as I said last time, fee increases and tax increases don't happen in a silo, and I guarantee that the Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District is going to be passing a property tax increase in addition to a water fee increase this year, although I'm going to vote against the property tax increase as a member of the board. And there are other tax hikes that are going to be happening. And so that's why I'm not fully comfortable with going with Exhibit A until we have a study that validates those numbers.
No, thank you. Good comment. I mean, Exhibit A would be effectively 100%, impact 100% of our residents and users, whereas B would probably be 10%.
Mayor, if I might just add one thing, just so that everybody is fully aware, with the rate study, once we assign that consultant, we will be asking them to look at all of the different structures, right? We're anticipating having multiple different rate schedules. We don't want to have a one-size-fits-all like we have here. I think this is, and please don't think this is me trying to push one way or the other. This is me simply saying it out loud, mostly probably for the benefit of the public that are hearing here and listening, and if there's any online listening. I will be shocked if the base rate, even for individual residential customers, comes in supporting less than even the 5. I would anticipate it being quite a bit more, as we've compared with other agencies. Again, I really have I don't have a preference either way here, but I just wanted to make sure that's clear. I would anticipate the rate study is going to validate base rates, regardless of which one we look at. They're not going to be $3.50.
Thank you. Anything further, Councilman Perucci?
No, just to that, I actually assume that we're going to be seeing the study that'll show a massive hike because we haven't raised rates in 10 years, but at least then we'll have a study that showcases why. And frankly, I don't expect that the council will then take that study and say, all right, we're going to go with every single recommendation immediately. I think we're going to have a gradual ramp up to that. And so at least that's what I'd like to see happen.
Thank you. Councilmember McKay.
I have 2 things. First off, like, say we went with Exhibit A, I would love to just make it like $3.80, and then if it was 15-cent difference, then have $3.95, $4.10, $4.25, $4.40. I just don't know why it's all, odd numbers and stuff. It just seems like it would make sense to round it out. But what if at our next council meeting you brought in like those 500 users? I guess I'm just a fairness police. And I feel like if there's a single family home that's using 5,000 gallons and then they get charged the smaller rate compared to a group of 10 homes and they're only using 5,000 gallons each home, but they're being charged the higher rate, it isn't fair in my mind. And so maybe we could even do the calculation of saying, okay, here's this HOA, here's how many gallons they're using, but this is how many households they have. And so I think that is pertinent information. I feel like if one household is using 5,000, that they shouldn't be charged more than another household that's using 5,000.
I don't know how we would regulate that because that master meter, it's all governed at the HOA level. So it would have to be incumbent upon the HOA to be
But they would know how many households are in the HOA. They could say it's 30 houses or 10 or.
Right now.
Right, but we couldn't tell how much each household uses.
Yeah.
We couldn't tell that. It's one big master meter. They only get, so for example, if you have a PUD that has, let's say, 80 units, and they have one master meter, they're assessed one base rate of $3.50. If they use 100,000 gallons, they'll be charged $3.76 for the first 5. They'll be charged $3.91 for the remaining 95,000 gallons.
That's actually a great justification right there. If they're getting charged $3.50 for 100 people in an HOA at a base rate, right? Is that what you just said?
That's exactly what I just said. It's a $3.50 base rate for just the one connection.
Then each one in there, especially right now with the way it's structured, they're getting $3.50. Everybody else is subsidizing them.
Correct. And in fact, I will tell you, when I worked in utility billing for another city, all PUDs, the base rate was assessed based on the number of units, in the PUD.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I do agree with fairness, and so if that's the case, like, maybe each of those households should get a base rate.
And I would anticipate that through the rate study, but again, just right now, we don't have the structure even in our system. When we anticipate this rate study come in, we're gonna have to spend some time designing the system because we designed the system based on the current fee schedule. So we're gonna have to redesign the system, and this is not automated. We will have to manually go in and find all of those different accounts and assign the different rate structure that we ultimately settle on for each of the individual accounts. And it's a manual process to do that.
Well, for the first time.
For the first time, and then it's fine.
And
But yeah.
Tyler Technologies going forward, they've got that capability.
Yeah, and that's a software issue no matter what software you use. You have to go in and find them initially.
Sure.
One last thing, I just like in Exhibit A, the total amount in increased revenue is 325, so it's higher, you know? And so, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Baroker and then McDougall.
I'm prepared to make a motion.
Well, we have to have a public hearing first.
Oh, excuse me. All right.
You'd like to maybe end debate?
Yes.
McDougall, anything further before we open the public hearing?
Yeah, just to find, and Mayor, you largely touched on it. It's not about fairness. The fairness is when the master meter went in. The fairness is when people choose the type of home they're going to live in, whether it's a PUD, whether it's a single-family residence, whether it's a half-acre lot or a 5,000 square foot lot. That's the only thing legally that's where they choose that sort of billing. And to your point, for years, there's many areas we have been subsidizing because there's 100 units paying 1 meter sign-up, where had those 100 people all been paying the $350 base rate, would be in a different position. And so I appreciate that we're trying, it's just that equalization, I don't want to waste your time trying to equalize every home because they weren't built for that. They're not built to be tracked that way. And when people choose to live in that kind of environment, that's a limitation. It would be a, so anyway, let's go ahead and move on to the public comment.
Yeah. No, point well taken. I mean, if they were individually metered, 100 homes in a PUD, HOA, they'd be assessed $350, right? Instead of what they're getting right now, $350 plus just a per thousand. So yeah, I can't wait for that rate. Yeah, it's great that we've had this rate structure in place for over 10 years now. Our residents have saved a ton of money. We're the lowest of the low, but there should have been a little more complexity, a little more nuance built into this rate structure than it's far too simplistic for, especially the way our city's built out. Councilman Broker, did you have anything else?
Public hearing.
Public hearing. Okay. Open up for a public hearing. Anybody like to speak to the proposed fee schedule adjustments for the water?
Hi, I'm Chandra Walker, and I've lived in Riverton for 35 years, so I've been here for a long time. I would definitely propose B over A, as I'm a retired senior citizen, and so I don't feel like, you know, I don't use a ton of water, but so the base rate is equal across everybody, including an HOA with 100 homes that pays $350 a month instead of $3,500 if you had 100 individual homes. So I definitely think, you know, the more water you use, I think Exhibit B encourages water conservation, which it sounds like that's clearly what our city needs. Also, what I'd like to see is that, you know, we've got information water usage is going up. See that disaggregated, that data disaggregated more. Who is using more water? Is it commercial? Is it residential? Is it HOA? Is it Riverton City even? You know, see that disaggregated data so you know where to kind of put things out rather than using the gunshot approach that everybody needs to conserve more water. But yeah, I definitely, as a senior citizen on a fixed income, I think Exhibit B is a lot more fair than Exhibit A. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Chandra. Anyone else? Okay. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. We'll bring it back to the council. Councilmember Broker.
Okay, Mayor, I'm prepared to make a motion. I move that we approve resolution number 25-10, amending the municipal fee schedule for the 2024-2025 fiscal year to the proposed fee schedule Exhibit B.
Motion and second. Any discussion of that motion? All right, Jamie, could you conduct a vote, please?
Councilmember Perucci.
Yes.
McDougall.
Yes.
McKay.
Yes.
Baroker.
Yes.
Haymond.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Motion carries. Appreciate the discussion and also all the work put in by staff here, and we look forward to that rate study being concluded. I told Kevin it needed to be done so that we could put it into this new budget year, and he said no. So I'm blaming him.
I'm just being realistic. We will do our best, but I do not anticipate it will be.
I'm going to muster my best trump and just say, get it done. You know, let's go. It's got to be huge. Let's get this done. All right. Well, item 16A, council, we had a very robust discussion on the 3-man versus 4-man during our work session. What other discussion would you like to have here? Would you like to have it continue to a different meeting? I'm just looking for your comments and feedback here. Councilman Heyman.
I believe some great thoughts were shared about costs are going up, everything's going up. We need to be looking at how can we pay for, how can we afford this greater service rather than how can we cut it? Because when you start cutting public safety, that's where people really get up in arms. And especially if it's your loved one, and you know, we helped you save $80 a year, but it cost you your house or your loved one, it's not going to go well. But when we look at things out there on the entire scale of what's going on with the growth of the city, the cost of things, again, we're being forced into a position where we have to pay for it. And as much as I'd love to go to a 3-man and save money for a little bit of time, it's going to save only a little bit of money for a short period of time before we have to raise no matter what. So personally, I think instead of looking at cutting, we should perhaps look at what it's going to take to pay for the future.
Thank you. You know, in looking at some of these projections too, the current projection, Kevin, that is the status quo, correct? We do nothing.
That's correct, status quo.
So status quo there, you're looking at the next year, 25-26, fund balance at about 1.7. We hit to a point not until 28-29 where we fall below the 10% fund balance recommendation. That's assuming that we spend the $250 a year, so on and so forth. So
correct, yeah, and as we know, that we may not.
Yeah. Given some of the comments that were made, and I admit I learned quite a bit here tonight, and Cliff, I appreciate your comments too. I know I've had conversations with Darren on this, so you know what I've been concerned with is impacting public safety. I get that we have, our population has increased, our build out continues to go the way that it is. I think we've been pretty well served though with the manpower that we've had to date. At least I haven't heard through the board recommendations of starting to increase immediately. We've got the 3 stations. I thought it was a very smart move that we moved to create our own service district. And as you put out there, the cumulative savings are around $2 million since we did that, because we now, being outside of that service area for UFSA, we've not, with the bonds that have increased and all that, we haven't been hit with that. So I know Councilmember Stewart, when he was here, that was a big initiative of his, and I told him it hasn't saved as much money as the police department. That's now $21+ million that I had really pushed on. But this is that was a good move, and now we control these assets. I didn't know about the ambulance count and the impact that would have, and so I definitely, given the information I've uncovered through the work session and subsequent conversations, I think moving Whereas perhaps in the past, I may have entertained a 4 to 3 man at both stations. I definitely wouldn't be in favor of that. I might be open to a 3 man at station 124 if we can maintain the ambulance service and see what that would do. But I'd like to have that information in terms of the number of calls at each station and see what that true impact would be. And if that happened based on the projections you put together, just going 1 station to 3 man, you build up a little bit of a fund balance. It takes you out to 2030 or so. But maybe part of the conversation too, I want to make certain, and from UFA standpoint, with the current manpower count and with the apparatus and the ambulance count, we're pretty, are we well served? Or do we, to the point that Cliff had made earlier, do we need to be looking in the next 5 years at additional, maybe not trucks and ladders, but are the recommendations, and excuse me, you've probably gone through this on the UFA board, but I would just be curious to know, looking out 5 years, are we projecting the need for additional ambulances, engines, apparatus of any sort?
Yeah, my name is Chief Burchett with UFA, and that's a conversation that we had when we were discussing the animal shelter. We project that in the last 6 years, there's been a 20% increase in call volume in Riverton specific. So
with the animals, when we were looking at maybe...
We were talking about the animal shelter and moving
for 120.
So we did that projection at that time, and we're projecting that same increase over the next 5 to 6 years, so another 20% increase of call volume. Today in Riverton, or at least in 2024, there was just over 2,100 calls in the city.
Yes.
So you add 20% to that, and you're about 2,600. So at that point, I think the discussion is, yes, there is a need to add capacity at Station 120 to respond to those.
And as a contract city, for lack of a better term, now we're not part of the service district, how does that work when you need to add another piece of equipment? Is that's just part of our budget? You say, hey, we had to buy an ambulance at X amount of dollars, and
we UFA, that's all part of the included costs. So it would be the chart that I shared with Kevin and Councilmember Baroker has all the costs broken down, but it would, in today's dollars, be 3.1 million, and that's all in for a 4-person.
So hang on, say that again. In 5 to 6 years, you expect call volumes or calls to go up 20%.
20%.
Which would necessitate how much more equipment? You said
it would necessitate a discussion on adding a unit to make sure that our coverage was still adequate based on what this body wants. But
on adding a unit?
Adding an engine.
An engine?
At Station
And what about
120.
ambulance?
There was already an ambulance there.
There's already an ambulance there.
At 120.
There's an ambulance at 120, the Centennial.
Right.
Yeah, there's an ambulance at the old station and one at 121 currently.
Yes.
So adding a third heavy apparatus, which would be an engine company, at 120 would be the discussion to handle that additional 500-ish calls.
Stations,
No.
we might need one additional piece of equipment, which we could house
At
with our
Station
current
120.
capacity.
Correct. You have adequate stations to serve the entire city based on the current boundaries. Now, we're anticipating going up instead of out. Your call volume will continue to increase with that.
Chief?
Wouldn't need another ambulance. You might be looking at an engine.
Chief,
Correct.
do you mind if I act like Tony for a moment?
Sure.
Hang on. So let me just final thought. So this budget with the 5.5% increases or so, does that or does that not contemplate an extra $1 million or whatever? I mean, do you annualize it, the engine cost, and just charge us then over the?
It would be depending on when you put it into service. So if you came to me, if Councilmember Broker came to me and said we need an engine in service tomorrow, we would have to hire to that number, and then we would prorate the amount based on the amount of the year left.
Oh, wow.
I think this might help also. I want to act like his CFO for a moment. So the breakdown that they give us when they do the analysis, there are 25 stations in UFA, and they have a staffing cost that is for the actual station. And then they take the regional costs, which are the service delivery, so the ambulance, the heavy rescue, all of that stuff, the support, the administrative support, as well as their capital fund transfers. Okay. They take that budget and they divide that straight line over the 25 stations. So if we were to add 120 into now the mix of an operational station, that the regional costs, and stop me if I say anything wrong, the regional costs would be divided now among 26 stations, but then we would have the staffing cost of a full station, and right now that's just shy of $2 million for a year for a 4-handed station. Okay. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. Yep.
So is that reflected in these projections?
No, that is not. If we were to do something like that, if 5 years down the road, looking at 2030, 2031, we would either need to be doing a pretty hefty tax increase that year, or we should be looking at doing smaller increases to start building up some fund balance, anticipating that.
I think, Mayor, the point is that
you know where I'm going with this. I mean,
the call volume today is managed by the current staffing levels quite well. They can handle more capacity with the call volume, so that can continue to increase. You could, in 5 years, look at adding an additional apparatus if we start to see that there are more calls than we can handle. But right now, the call volume is adequate that they can handle it. So the conversation that Kevin and I had about adding that apparatus was a what if we start increasing calls. It's not. I can't tell you that today, in 5 years, you need an additional engine.
Okay. Thank you. And thanks, Council, for indulging me in kind of steering that. Councilmember Perucci.
I wanted to clarify, because it got a little confused in the discussion from the work session. I just wanted to make sure I understood. So if we, and I'm not saying this is the direction I want to go, but if we did go to 1 4-man crew and 1 3-man crew, did I hear you correctly that there's a potential that we would have 3 ambulances across the city?
No.
Okay.
No,
That's why I wanted to clarify, because there was, at one point I thought you said that we'd keep it at 121, you would lose the medic engine / hazmat but that may be replaced by an ambulance, is what I thought you may have said.
You could potentially keep the 2.
Okay.
If you went to 3 and 4. I don't know yet what that looks like until we figure out what the decision is.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I understood that because at the end of the day, we don't want to sacrifice public safety. We've got to figure out how to pay for the service we're providing now and anticipate the growth that we're going to have in the future. We're going to face a challenge based upon the current funding structure, 28, 29. So we're going to have to make some decisions there on that piece. But thanks, that helps.
Councilmember Broker.
I want to thank Councilmember Heyman. That was a great comment, and I really appreciated it. I think where I land after all of this discussion, which I really appreciated, and thank you so much for coming and spending your evening with us. It's made me feel better, actually, to hear the questions, because it does take some time to just grasp what we're talking about. But where I land is we definitely have to keep Station 121 4-handed and keep those services up there. I would love to see if on Station 124 we could look at the numbers, and if those numbers equate out, then we leave both 4-handed. If it looks more like Cottonwood Heights and there's less calls down there, which I don't actually believe that's what we're going to see, then if there's less calls down there, I would be comfortable with the 3-handed, but I would need to see that number. That's where I land.
We actually pulled that during the meeting. And like I said, it's 2,100 calls in 2024 between both stations. At 121, there was about 1,200, and at 124, about 900. So not a huge difference, but
not dramatic like it is at Cottonwood Heights.
One call a day difference.
Yeah.
1,200 at Station 121, and about 900 at Station 124.
That's per year.
Per year.
So about less than 100 calls a month Yeah, okay.
Yep.
What about 120?
120 is attached, that's just an ambulance, and so that responds with 124 or 121, so we don't calculate those calls because they're with those other units.
No, Councilmember Broker did a great job giving the data.
Okay. Thank you. Council, any other discussion on this? Do we need to continue it to a next session? Is there any other discussion that we need to have? I mean, this isn't really slated for any action per se, like you said.
So
Kevin.
maybe I'll just chime in for a moment, Mayor, and I'll even let Chief Burchett chime in if you'd like as well. We don't officially need a vote per se, but I think Chief Burchett, whether it's tonight or maybe there is a little bit more information we'd like to have, I think if the council is wanting to look at transitioning one or both of the stations down to a three-handed crew, we need to give Chief Burchett time to actually plan for that until July 1, or before July 1, ramping up to July 1. If the council feels like we need to do an official vote to make it very clear, I think that staff would prefer that. I think it could be a little bit more simple. We could come back. Ryan has mentioned we don't necessarily need a resolution, but we can just to make it more official. Entirely up to you how you want to proceed here. We could push
Al
it.
Summer, from what I'm hearing, is definitely not going from 4 to 3 at both stations. There's maybe some consideration for 124, but if the council wants to deliberate on that, we do have a closed session here tonight on one item that we need to discuss. That would be the only other thing that we have to talk about here this
Mayor, just maybe one more thing. Chief, what would be kind of that last moment where you're like, okay, if you guys are looking at 124 going to three-handed, I need to know by now, by this time.
Yeah, and I appreciate your concern on that. I think for me it's more important that you make the right decision versus the quick decision. I can react. So if I have it by May, we can change our budget. Our budget isn't fully adopted until the June meeting, so that would create a little bit more challenge to get it in May. But I would rather pause the decision if there needs to be more discussion, so you can make the right decision for your communities.
All right, thank you. Council members Perucci, Broker, McDougall, do you have?
Thanks. I really appreciate this discussion. One thing I do think that we haven't really talked about a ton, but I'd love for us to consider and talk to our partners at other levels of government and the nonprofit community is how we can work to address call volumes from like a community health perspective and a community engagement perspective, because I don't think that we don't have to just accept the increasing call volumes when you see some of the hotspot areas in our community that we see these call volumes. We've got the assisted living facilities. I mean, those are always going to be hotspot areas, repeat call volumes. But there are some serious gaps in community connectivity that leads to some of these repeat calls. I mean, I was telling Chief Watkins when we met about this earlier today, neighbors in my church congregation, they called for everything under the sun, and husband looked flush, they call, and it's just it's a level of how do you handle medical challenges, and do you handle it yourself? Do you ask your neighbors for help, or do you call 911? And so this is not on UFA, but I think we can be partners together, and partners with the county, partners with others, partners with religious organizations and our faith leaders in the community to help really become more of a community that engages with each other, so that we don't always have to have that resort being call 911. I mean, I had another neighbor that she needed help getting out of bed, and I told her afterwards, and UFA came out, and they had to, it was a pretty extensive response, and I told her afterwards, like, call us. That's where we're here. And so
Engaging in a discussion where us as a city, a municipality, we might be able to help with the calls going forward, right?
That's a longer term discussion and a community change, but it's maybe not going to be an immediate fix, but that's something that I'm committing to trying to help work with you guys on, and I'd love for us to look at other ways that we can do that as a city.
Yeah, and Mayor, I'd love to respond to that.
I'm going to guess it's in that bar chart you sent me, Wade. You got the fire, you got the EMS, probably nothing you could do there, but that gray area where you maybe have some of these, right? The other, right? You got some really randomness, I'm sure, in there that we might be able to do something with.
And two comments on that. The first one that I'll make is that we're actively pursuing what we call community risk reduction.
Yeah.
And what that is trying to figure out a way to reduce the calls, reduce the risk. In our environment where we just continue to see an increase in call volume, there's got to be a way to reduce some of those calls. So we are currently in the process of hiring the community risk manager for the department, and that person's entire job is to reach out to all of our communities, all the programs that currently exist, and create networks and to try to figure out to do exactly what you're saying, council member. We can't just continue to do business as usual, and so we're looking actively for ways to help manage the increase in call volumes without throwing 6 people at every problem. But the second point of that is that I've heard a lot of citizens say, why is there a fire truck and an ambulance at every single call? And right now, that model is that's our toolbox, and we don't know what call we're going to get. And so we have to take our toolbox with us. The analogy I used with Councilmember Broker this morning was if you have a water leak and a plumber shows up in a sedan, he's not going to be able to fix your problem, right? And if you have a flood, you want him to show up with all the tools necessary to fix the problem. With our all-response model, we don't know what the call is going to be until we hear the dispatch details, and so we have to bring everything with us. And so oftentimes we have a fire truck and an ambulance on someone that needs to be just picked up. But really, that's our transportation to all these calls, so that we can be prepared for any type of response, whether that's medical, fire, hazmat, heavy, rescue, whatever the call is. And people call us when they don't know who else to call. When they can't figure out how to solve their problem, they call us and we show up. So that ties in very well to this community risk reduction mindset of trying to figure out how to educate people on what other resources are currently available so that we can start to reduce that call volume.
Thank you. Anything further? Councilmember Baroker, McDougall, Heyman.
One thing I want to remind the council of also is that this is a decision for 1 year. So it's not earth-shattering. It's a 1-year decision, and we revisit it every single year if we feel like a change needs to be made. Second of all, when you look to the future, which is an important aspect of what we do as council members, but you have to remember that the hospital is also looking at the future. And Riverton Hospital today is a community hospital. But I know that is changing also. And who knows in 5 years whether or not more of those needs might be able to be met at that particular facility. I mean, it's just changing, which is why you have to look at it every year and just make the best decision for your community going forward. And that the UFA has to understand that, yes, financially it's very constraining, and we always need to be looking at ways we can provide better service at the least amount of increased cost as possible.
Absolutely. Councilmember McDougall.
So I guess I'm just going to start throwing the direction that I would like to go. And I appreciate Chief Burchett, and I appreciate Councilmember Broker. You have brought a lot of data to us tonight, a lot of information. As the mayor pointed out, we've all had questions and different ideas. I personally would like to take a step back, give me a week or two to digest all the data and get it organized before making a decision, just because there's been a lot of, and you've done an incredible job informing us. I just want to thank you for that. So I would prefer not to make a decision tonight, but to give us some time to look at big picture, get any of those other side questions answered, and then we come back making a decision. That's the direction I would prefer to go, because it doesn't sound like it's going to affect you if we're coming back next council meeting, and I appreciate your flexibility on that. So that's my recommendation of a direction I would prefer to go right now.
Thank you. Councilmember Heyman.
Chief Burchett, just one question here. First off, we're looking at here the possibility of taking 124 to a 3-man team. You said that would just basically become a ambulance location, is that right?
No, that would be a 3-person engine.
A 3-person engine. Okay, 3-person engine. So, and then the tool chest, would a 4-passenger truck with the ambulance bed on back, would that is that a better tool chest than the whole, or is it always best to have ambulance and fire truck?
I think our current model is the best for today, which is a fire truck and an ambulance. The situation that you're talking about, every time they transport to the hospital, they have to take all 4 to the hospital. And there's not always a need for that. But the model that we have today allows that heavy apparatus to go back into service while the ambulance transports with whatever they need. Maybe that's 1 person or 2 people or 3 people.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Thank you. And I do like the idea of being able to digest some of this stuff rather than try to make a decision tonight and then think about it later and realize that was the wrong decision. So
I think it's what I'm hearing too. I'll just go ahead and guys, I'd like to kind of cut off discussion here and let's move on to March 18th. And if we need to have a resolution, to that effect so that the staff is comfortable with exactly the direction we're going. So I appreciate your time for coming out, and I'm sure, council, if you have additional questions, please let's pose those to either city staff or, directly to Chief, however you would like to have those sent, maybe just to Chief Watkins.
Yeah, and I'm happy and available to meet with you one-on-one if that's necessary, or Chief Watkins as well.
Thank you. Thanks. Council, nothing else on the agenda. We do have a closed session that we need to go into on the discussion, item C, strategy to discuss sale, purchase, exchange, or lease of real property. And so if there's nothing else that member of the council would like to bring up during a regularly scheduled council meeting, entertain a motion to move into closed session upon the conclusion of that to adjourn our work session or work council meeting. Councilmember McDougall.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we move into a closed session for item C, strategy session to discuss the sale, purchase, exchange, or lease of real property, including any form of water rights or water shares. At the conclusion of that closed door session, I move that we close our city council meeting.
Broker seconds.
Thank you. Jamie, could you conduct a vote, please?
Councilmember McKay?
Yes.
Haymond?
Yes.
Broker?
Yes.
Perucci?
Yes.
McDougall?
Yes.
All right, thank you.